Hello and welcome to another episode of the Never a Straight Answer podcast, the podcast that aims to cover a wide range of topics from conspiracy theories to popular culture and news. I'm your host Gaz, and joining me in the studio, he's allegedly lost his virginity before his dad did. He's my co-host, he's Mr. Taylor.
Yeah, good evening ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls.
Welcome back. Welcome back, new listeners and repeat offenders. Thank you for joining us for another spooky episode.
Oh yeah.
Still October. We're keeping up with the paranormal stuff.
We are,
and this
indeed.
week we're going to be joined on the show by a fantastic guest.
Yes.
Michael is going to be joining us on the show. Michael Gagliardi. Sorry, I do apologise. Yeah. He's the author of The Devil Take the Hindmost, a true story of terror.
Oh yeah.
It's a really interesting guest. I can't wait for you to listen. That's coming up a bit later on in the show.
Yeah.
But before all that, we've got a few more bits and pieces.
We have indeed. We always do.
Yeah, and later on in the show, we've also got the NASA news. That's all coming up very shortly in the show, so well worth sticking around for. But what have you been up to this week, Mr. Taylor? I've got a couple of announcements, but you tell me what you've been up to first.
I've just been looking on YouTube and stuff and learning some new things about like what you call it? The tallest mountain in the world.
Oh, right.
Which is Everest.
Yeah.
Learning some stuff about it cost you $4,000 to actually be able to have permission to go up there.
Serious?
Yeah.
So I can just turn up?
No.
They'd want like a down payment?
Yeah, apparently there's loads of fights in the queues. There's absolutely loads of fights to get up there.
It's like I was here first.
But the interesting thing was, once you get up there, you have to bring back down 18 kilograms of feces.
Your own?
Not necessarily your own.
Well, wait a minute. So you got to go hunting around for feces to bring down?
Yeah, because if you don't, then you lose your $4,000.
Seriously? Because I make sure you eat a lot of fibre and roughage that weekend. Well, do you know what? I know that there was a thing about, corpses, a problem with corpses. On Everest, because people die so often up there, and it's dangerous to bring the bodies down. So they end up just being left. So I know that there was a couple of incidents in the past where there was kind of major, tragedies, and there was kind of people who were just frozen up there and just get left.
You have to.
I'm not sure how likely it is. I mean, if you've climbed Everest.
Well, there's only two.
How likely is it to just kind of come across a dead body up there?
Funny enough, they might be able to do it this month because there's only 2 months of the year that that you can actually climb it.
Really?
And
I want to see if anyone's climbing Everest and you see a dead body, take a picture. I know that sounds really macabre, morbid.
Man.
No, I know, but I'm kind of interested at the same time. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
I do have this morbid curiosity about these things.
Well, it is an interesting thing. If you spot a Yeti, there's actually rules. If you spot a
Yeti on the mountain,
you can't kill it. You can take a picture. You can capture it, but as soon as you get that back down, you have to hand it over to the authorities.
See, I'm going
or you lose your $4,000.
You see, that is
probably your liberty.
You need spooky music when somebody says you're going to lose $4,000.
Oh yeah,
Jesus!
Yeah. It's not a little amount, is it? Really?
No. Well,
especially the States and there.
We've got some announcements.
We are
from this week actually, because from this Thursday just gone.
Yeah.
We will be now represented on Redwall Radio, online radio station. We'll be available. You can listen to us on air from 9 p.m. on Thursdays. That's Greenwich Mean Time. I'll post a link.
Yes.
So you can go and check that out.
Yeah.
Really cool little radio station as well. They've got a few talk shows, play a lot of music. Play a lot of music that I like. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? He's got cool. Whoever's kind of DJing have got good taste.
Good taste.
So yeah. I
missed it this week, but I'll be definitely listening to it next week.
But also. Definitely check out Redwall Radio. Paranormality Magazine, who nominated us for the Best UFO Podcast Award. Their award ceremony show is going to be live on YouTube on Monday the 18th at 9 p.m. That's Eastern Standard Time, which works out in the UK at 1 a.m. on the 19th. So slightly ahead. So whereas 9 in the evening we're looking at 1 a.m.
Yeah.
So we'll be checking that out.
We will be.
Because apparently no one's been notified yet.
Yes, which is sweet. So
be quite exciting.
I might get dressed up.
I put my tux on.
Yeah,
sit in a tuxedo at 1 a.m. sat in my house.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, it's awkward, isn't it? So yeah. Other than that, it's just been a busy week for me.
Yes.
Been super busy doing bits and pieces.
Yeah.
But all getting in the right direction, I suppose.
Good.
So, what about yourself? So you've just been doing a bit of research on mountains?
Yeah, and well, different.
Bringing poo down from mountains.
Well, yeah, I thought I'd just do a little research into, little bits here and there, and then I spotted something with. I hadn't seen a group for a lot of many years, but I always mention him, and it's Right Said Fred.
Right, Deeply Dipper.
Yeah, and he went.
I'm too
gone quite
sexy.
Political, actually.
I'm too sexy for this song.
Well, yeah.
I'm too sexy for this podcast.
They look the same as well, but they've got.
Yeah, totally. I mean, which one's Right Said and which one's Fred?
Fred's the lead singer.
Right.
Yes, and the other one's the drummer, his brother.
Yeah, the brothers, aren't they?
Yeah.
Phil and Grant Mitchell.
Yeah. But it was interesting to see him out and about. You know what I mean? I haven't seen him for years.
So why hadn't they been out and about? Why haven't they been around for ages? I mean, Right Said Fred. I mean, if you don't know who Right Said Fred are, yeah, right.
90s, I think 91 they brought out that song.
1990s kind of. Yeah. They were very kitsch, very kind of like a faddish, weren't they? It was like a big fad. Yeah. They did that. I'm too sexy.
Yeah,
I'm too sexy for this song.
But around the time it was.
But then they did nothing, and they did one other tune, but they've still kind of carried. They've still everyone knows who they are. They crop up all the time, and it's like Right Said Fred, no drama.
They've
Do you know what I mean?
done some songs for Jay-Z. Who else was it? There's quite a number of people who apparently they're credited.
It's like Bros. Yeah, remember Bros?
Yeah,
Matt and Luke Goss from Bros. They but the end of, like I said, I was just about to say, one of them turned up in movies. One of them was Darth Maul, or was he? Did he play Darth Maul? Or he played somebody in Blade?
Yeah, definitely in Blade.
He played the Reapers.
Yeah, and didn't he do Hellboy as well?
He did
one of them was in Hellboy.
He did a lot of work.
I think it was.
Yeah, but I mean, I actually prefer his acting work to his music.
Well, I actually watched something on these two actually, and they couldn't get together. Basically, they had a major
bit of a dispute.
Yeah.
Bit of a Nolan Liam situation.
Yeah, and they tried to get together a few times, but it just didn't work. But I think they have done. They have got back together, but I don't actually know what the situation is with them at the moment.
There you go.
I haven't kept my eye on him.
Well, one last thing before we move on. This week's episode and all the way through October, our show is brought to you by Manscaped.
Oh, yes. You want a shave? Get a Manscaped.
You do. You need a Manscaped. Don't be a wolf, man.
No, hell no. Don't be a wolf, man.
Get the best in men's grooming and keep away those
little critters.
It's a once in a full moon sort of deal. This,
shave, actually,
do you know what I mean? And basically, Manscaped are offering their precision engineered tools.
Yes, definitely.
The specifically for your man areas.
Your crown jewels.
Now they've launched their 4th generation trimmer, which is Lawnmower 4.0.
Yeah.
Right across Europe.
I love the design round it, like it's stealthy kind of, a stealth fight.
Do you know what? I had a kind of a thing the other day, but which I'll go into in a second, right? But not a problem, because it was one of those things where it was like, in fact, I'll tell you. So what happened was, using it, battery ran out. Yeah. Okay. And you know how it is, where I actually thought, well, it's not got a plug-in charge thing, so I could use it while it's running.
Yeah, that's right.
Because it's a USB charging dock, which is cool as anything.
Yeah.
But honestly, sometimes when you plug your razor in and you've got to wait for it to, build up a charge so you can kind of use it again. It starts lagging really quickly.
Yeah,
and it almost sort of runs out of battery
as soon as you press the button on.
Yeah, and you start getting those nicks.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas this, it was in there for about a couple of minutes. Yeah. Yeah. And when I tried it, it was like it was at full power.
Right. Oh, right.
And even though it didn't last as long, when it didn't slowly trickle out of juice, it just stopped.
Right, okay.
Which is more safe for you. Do you know what I mean? You get less
That's a nice little safety
less
feature.
error or less sort of opportunity for those
the
nicks.
cuts. Yeah, you don't want that down there.
Join the revolution, and just like over 2 million men worldwide who use Manscaped and trust Manscaped, like I say, we've got an exclusive offer where you can get 20% off and free worldwide shipping using the code NASAPOD at manscaped.com.
Well worth it. Without a shadow of a doubt, I don't think I'll ever need to buy another one.
What you're gonna stick with Manscaped now?
Yeah, definitely.
I think so.
And these were only the first time I've ever used them.
So yeah, I think they're cool. Really cool.
I do.
Well, there you go. Well, this week we're joined on the show by a fantastic guest. He's the author of the book Devil Take the Hindmost. It's a true story of terror and a harrowing true story of a young boy's survival living 12 years with a demonically possessed mother. I'm sure he's got chilling tales to tell. Please join me in welcoming to the show Michael Gagliardi. Thank you for coming on to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to speak with you guys. I love doing these overseas interviews because you guys have such a different perspective than Americans. You know, Americans, they kind of poo-poo everything you say, you know, because it's, you know, you're so close, you know, but when you're a foreigner, you seem to accept it and be a little more open, you know, to hearing fantastical stories. You know, in America, we have everything. And that's not a good thing always.
It's funny to hear that as well, considering, you know, America's like, you know, the land of Hollywood and fantastic, telling fantastic stories. I think with the, especially here in the UK, we've been brought up on it. You know, we've always had like, you know, these myths and legends going way back, and it's just something that we've always been brought up with, and kind of can almost believe if in some ways, do you know what I mean? Believe in the fantastic and the fairy tales to an extent. Right. Do you know what I mean? And I think like especially when it comes to the paranormal, people just tend to have this sort of really deep interest in, and I mean, me personally, I'm one of those people. So I mean, when I heard about your story, I was really interested. I wanted to kind of find out a lot more, and I'm really pleased that you've come on the show to tell us.
Yeah, like I said, it's a pleasure. I love being able to talk to people from around the world, and it is a crazy story. You know, I hate to tell it, and I love to tell it. You know, it's a double-edged sword. It's difficult. I mean, it's taken me 40 years to talk about this, and originally I wrote the book just as a legacy for my kids, you know, because my kids are, you know, 30 years old. And, I wrote it just to, okay, you know, you want to know what happened to your old man? You know, here it is kind of deal. Then when I was writing it, you know, as I got into it, because I did it over COVID, so it was an 8-month period.
Okay. I mean, did you talk to your family prior to writing the book? I mean, you say it was a legacy for your kids, but I mean, were they aware
they know
of
parts
it?
of it already?
They knew parts of it, but they didn't really know the whole story. And, you know, my kids I have 2 girls, and they were saying, you know, Dad, how's the book going? And I would say, it's going good. And then as the months would go by, they would tell me, you know, you should make this public. And I kind of thought about it. And, you know, when something's yours, you know, it's like people hearing your own voice on the radio or something like that. You're like, God, I sound like an idiot, you know, and you think even, no matter how fantastic your story is, it's just yours. And you think, God, who wants to hear that crap, you know? But, you know, as my girls started talking to me and saying, hey, Dad, you need to make this public. And I thought about it. It took me probably 4 months of them talking to me about it, where I was actually convinced and said, yeah, you know, I think I'll publicize this. My biggest fear, at one point, I backed away from it because I was afraid that people would go, oh, you're lying. You're trying to get attention. You're trying to sell books. You're trying to do this and do that. And, you know, a child that's broken like me, that's the last thing you need is people rejecting you and telling you you're a liar. Yeah. I mean, that doesn't help your cause any or your mental stability. And I was really kind of put off for that. And then I can't remember what it was that actually I think one of my daughters had said to me that, Dad, somebody else could be going through this and feel the exact same way about you. And, we're more open to talk about things nowadays.
Yeah.
I mean, you saw the sexual scandals with Weinstein and all these, that go 20, 30 years back. And now people are going, hey, I'm ready to hear this.
Exactly. And it's not only that, it's people are ready to tell their stories as well. After, I mean, and it'll take... I mean, like in those instances, like I think that these people don't come out so quickly because they feel like no one's going to believe them, and it takes people taking that first step and saying, well, that's happened to me as well, and this is what happened, and telling the story for other people to definitely come forward and say, well, you've given me the strength to come forward and say, that happened to me too. So you are 100% right, and your daughters are right. By releasing the story and basically putting it out there, I do believe that there are potentially people that can help. So
and has it made you actually feel better for actually releasing it?
Yes, because the response has been, interviewers like you guys, have been compassionate, have been understanding and, believing. Because like I said, you can tell a story like this. There's so many liars out there trying to sell books and stuff like that. And my intention was never to sell books or anything like that. It was just to tell my girls, okay, when you're ready, here's my story if you care. And I didn't even think they even cared, but they kept asking and talking to me. And they're like, Dad, this is a profound story. And you need to talk about this. And that's what really convinced me. Because, I always used to think it was kind of a cliche when people come out and said, well, I had to have the courage, to talk about this. And I thought, what the heck? That sounds so cheesy, but truly that is, now that I'm in that position, you are, it's like being an artist, anything, you're afraid of that rejection. You're afraid of somebody casting off your whole entire life with just a shrug of the shoulders and going, well, that's bull crap.
Yeah.
I think
that's the same in a lot of aspects of life, isn't it? I think no matter what you're doing, if you're putting yourself out there, then there is always that
criticism.
There's always that,
that's right.
negative person who's going to be a bit kind of like, what are you doing that for? Or they don't understand it. Yeah. So it's been, like you say, poo-pooed and it's cast aside. But I mean, I do believe that obviously in some respects as well, I mean, regardless of whether you believe the paranormal aspects of your story, I mean, you could totally put that into, people will be helped from a mental health standpoint, and take parallels from what happened and maybe be able to kind of not explain things that way, but be able to
have some answers to the questions that you all want.
Kind of.
And a survivor story. Survivors. I mean, when I finished the book, I was tentative about publishing it. But I had actually talked to, I don't know if you know Marty Stalker from Belfast. He's a producer. He did the documentary Hostage to the Devil about Malachi Martin.
And are they interested in kind of looking into the story?
Yes, I actually talked to him, and he was the one that kind of was very accepting of me, because I figured that, here's a guy that studied for 6 years about Malachi Martin and all the exorcists. He's not going to be put off by my book. He's going to understand my story. He's going to have some sympathy. And when he accepted it and said, hey, listen, Michael, this is really something. And then we still communicate and correspond to this day. That's kind of what got me over the hump, about the public, because he was the first public person that actually talked to me and said, listen, I believe you, you got to get your story out there, man, and that's really, other than my family, no one knew about it. No one knew about it.
So how did it
all... So Marty kind of helped me.
So how did it all come about then? I mean, you were 12. So obviously it was you were 12 when this all came to a head. But I mean, as a even younger child, I mean, what was you thinking? I mean, what was going on around you that kind of made you think that there's something wrong here?
I'll start from the beginning, and I'll tell you, I was an extremely alive, sensitive, and analytical child. And I don't know if it was because of the situation or I was just like that. But by the time I was 3 years old, the first incident that happened, we were living in Toronto in a tall apartment building. We were on the 11th floor. And, my family's Italian. So, at lunchtime when you're a kid, you eat pasta fagioli or pastina. It's like little star soup, with the ricotta in it.
Yeah. Sounds lovely, actually.
Yeah. Everybody kind of has some version of that. And my mother would call me to the table, and the soup would always be on the table. This one afternoon, she called me to the table. I sat down at the table, and it wasn't there. And she came up behind me and poured the scalding soup all down my shoulder. And I was screaming. It was just, scalding hot. I was screaming. She never said a word to me. She ended up calling the taxi. A taxi came, picked us up. She took me to the doctor, never comforted me, never held me, never touched me, never said any encouraging words. We went to the doctor. He bandaged me up or whatever he did, and then took me home. And that was the beginning of the trauma for me. That was the starting point of it all. And from that point on, my mother, she never touched me. She never held me. She never displayed affection toward me. Something was clearly wrong. And we're talking, this is like 1971. I was 3, I think, in 1971.
Okay.
And then from there, we moved into a house in Toronto. And then I have an older sister. She's 7 years older, so I kind of tapped her for some information about the years when I was really young. And she said it was around that time that things started getting weird. My mother she'd see things around the house. She claimed there was little people running around the house. She heard voices, and this was the beginning of it. And by the time I was 5 years old, we moved 100 miles away, which was odd because my dad worked in the city that we were living in. So we moved 110 miles away, and then he had to drive all the way back down to where we used to live to go to work.
So it wasn't a case of that you've moved because it was, you were relocating for your father's employment or anything like that. It was a case of that you just were moving to get away from something.
To get away from something. I don't know what that is to this day because my family, especially the Italian side, they don't talk. They're old school. They don't talk. You don't talk about nothing if it's negative. Everything's got to be positive. Everybody's having a good time. Everybody's drinking wine, that kind of thing. So when we ended up moving 100 miles away to a very rural town, way up on Nottawasaga Bay, which is part of Georgian Bay. It's 100 miles north of Toronto, a town of 4,500. I went to kindergarten. And then from kindergarten, here we go. Things start to progressively get worse. I would say by the time I was 10 is when it really started getting bad. She was always talking to herself. She didn't work. She stayed at home. She was always talking to herself. And this is, I'll just kind of take you through the progression. She began talking to herself, which, we all kind of,
yeah, we all do occasionally. Yeah. I mean, I'm guilty of that, but I mean, you can tell if it's was it full blown conversations or did you ever find that there was like, if she was talking, was she answering her own questions? Is another point because you find that talking to yourself and not getting a response or thinking the response is one thing, but when there's a third person it starts to get a bit kind of like, well, are you actually physically talking to somebody or are you talking to yourself? So, so was that the case in some cases? Yeah.
Well, that was the case always. And the progression, it got worse and worse. So she went from talking to herself in a normal voice, and I'm talking all day long, to talking to herself with different voices, different tonalities, answering in different tonalities, to after a few more years, it went into different languages. It became more violent.
Can I ask?
Became more.
Did your mother have an interest in like the occult or paranormal? I mean, it sounds, because from cases I've kind of read up on, these, you know, when people have multiple voices, they're usually brought in by. I mean, if I'm wrong, somebody out there will tell me I'm wrong. But generally, how I see it is that when multiple spirits or multiple voices are kind of coming into call, then it's usually because they've been involved in a seance or some sort of, you know, spiritual gathering, or like a, you know, the Ojo boards, the Ouija boards. And, you know, it's, it kind of reminds me of if you've ever heard of the case of the Enfield hauntings, when the girl who was possessed in that case was talking, she was talking in many different voices, answering questions as that person, but it was more than one entity, if you like. She wasn't being possessed by one spirit. Yes.
And this is exactly what happened. I mean, from talking to my sister, the entry point that we believe is that when my mother was around 17 or 18, she lost her father, who she loved and adored, in a tragic train accident. Right, I think he stumbled across the train tracks, and the train hit him and cut his legs off and killed him. So it was tragic.
Wow.
And I remember when we were still living in Toronto that, you know, my bedroom, you know, you'd leave the door open, and, you know, adults talk thinking you don't understand and you don't know, but you retain those memories and then decipher them later on. I remember them talking about seances, her with her sister. So I believe that my mother tried to contact her father because she loved him so much. My grandmother, who was her mother, she lost it and went partying.
Oh, right. Okay. So she basically kind of went off the rails, if you like. Yeah.
Yes. And then my mother had to take care of her two younger siblings.
That must have been hard for her.
Yes, and I think this is what happened, because I remember my aunt, who was my mother's sister, she was always into, you know, back in the early 70s, it was swinging and seances and Ouija boards and you know, these kind of things of the time.
That's
and
what
I remember hearing talk of that.
Yeah, so she must have been kind of like had an interest in these things to basically.
Well, the death of the father would have spurred it on as well.
Well, this is the thing. It was it was a popular thing to do, wasn't it? So I mean, if, like you say, if she's got this sort of you know, devotion to her dad, and, you know, she's
possible connection to try and actually have a last talk with him or something.
It was devastating.
Or the other way round. Or the other way round. I mean, it's like we talked about spirits having unfinished business. I mean, maybe potentially the spirit needed to speak to her for some reason rather than the other way round. Do you know, like, why, you know, and potentially does these maybe had an interest in those types of practices to find out why. So, I mean, it might not be a case of that she was trying to contact him for a reason. It could have been either or, really, couldn't it?
Can I ask,
sure.
did your mother actually have a mental health checkup?
Never.
It was a different time back then as well. I think in terms of how mental health was approached back in the like 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, even early 80s, is totally different how it's looked at now. I think it's like only in the last, say, 20 years that mental health's really, you know, started to be taken seriously, you know, and not just like, well, electroshock therapy or whatever, do you know, like whatever, lobotomization, you know, which was which was standard practice back in the early days of looking at mental health.
I'm gathering that's why she didn't actually go and actually be tested, because of all that. Well, we believe this, and then they just basically threw you in a nut house and locked the door and left you there for to do whatever you had to do.
Well, that's what we all thought for quite a while. We all thought, oh, mom's just crazy, and we ignored it. But it got to the point by the time I was 15 or 16, it got so bad and the whole thing changed. I mean, she went from talking in these multiple voices to talking in these guttural. I mean, if you've ever experienced
talking in tongues.
Well,
no, it wasn't in
more
tongues.
aggressive, like more. Would you say more masculine voice tones? Like if
you've ever heard the tapes of the Annalisa Michelle case, very much like that, but all kinds of voices, multiple conversations. It was a freaking circus. And then she'd go in the split second, go from singing hymns and then whistling songs in perfect, and she would do this sitting in her chair. This would happen from the hours of the morning until dusk.
And how old was your mother at this point in her life, if you don't mind me asking?
She was in her late 30s and 40s.
Okay, so
she actually died at 46.
Right. Okay.
And that's a crazy story, but it started getting so bad, and then I started hearing all these bangings in the walls, and she would be in her room like soon as dusk would come. This is when it started to get really bad. She would, during the daytime, she would sit in her chair, do these conversations, I mean, it was just a circus.
Right.
And she'd be whacking herself on the chest with a big log because we had a fireplace. What? She would get a log and she would be whacking herself on her chest. I mean, the thuds were tremendous. She'd just be whack, whack, whack. And she would do this for 14 hours a day. I would actually leave in the morning.
So
yeah, I would leave in the morning and come back in late afternoon, and where I'd be parking my bike, I could hear the thuds from outside.
So were all these occurrences really just surrounding your mother? I mean, did you find that there was anything happening in the house that was? You said that you were hearing like bangs in the walls and stuff, but were there any other paranormal activity going on in the house, like items moving, or kind of any sort of like anything that you could put down to symbols, an external force rather than physically your mother? So if you...
Well, we didn't see anything move, but when dusk came, she would retreat to her room, and then I would hear banging on the walls and the floor, because we had a subfloor, because we had a basement. So, if you hit your foot on the ground, you hear the noise throughout the whole house.
Yeah.
We would hear all this banging, and it sounded like three people wrestling, and I'd go, what the hell? And I'd run into her room really quick, and I'd open the door, and she'd be lying in her bed with the covers pulled up to her eyes.
Right. So this whatever was going on in the room wasn't her.
And I was like, this is when it all began to get very, very wicked and very evil. She began blaspheming. She began screaming in the middle of the night. I mean, blood-curdling screams. And it got so bad that this went on all day long, and at nighttime. It's like she never slept. So I had to sleep with an armoire pushed up against the door. I did this for probably 8 years. And I slept with a hockey stick because, we're Canadians, so we have hockey sticks.
Love a bit of hockey, yeah.
And I slept in my bed in a fetal position, and I wore holes right down to the springs from my hip, my knee, my ankle, and my shoulder from being in the same position every night holding the hockey stick. And this is how I slept every night for 7 or 8 years.
So you were obviously... Go on, sorry.
My sister locked herself in her room.
So you were both fearing for your safety at this point, then. So I mean, did you not report this to anybody? I mean, what was the situation there? I mean, did you just feel like you couldn't, or was you being protective of your mother?
What was your father's response?
Yeah.
Well, my father, he's a strange individual, and I love him a lot. But he went through World War II in Italy.
Right. Okay.
So he grew up in a refugee camp and then in government housing. He was one of 7 children.
So he's been through the mill, hasn't he, your dad? Like, he's seen a bit of everything, seen it all, really.
Yes. So he has his own PTSD issues. You know, he saw, you know, his donkey was blown up in front of him and all the guts went on him and his family while they were hiding from the Nazis. And
Jeez.
so he only had a 4th grade education, you know. So, and like I told you, he was working in Toronto, so he was never home.
Right, okay.
And he'd only come home for a few hours on the weekend and then leave. So he was never part of any of this, though he knew she was not well.
That deal for you and your sister, basically, to look after.
Yes. And, you know, this happened so slowly over the years that I never even thought, even as a teenager, that there was something wrong because it was gradual. This thing was gradual. I never went to school and went, oh my God, you should see what's happening at my house. Never even crossed my mind.
Was there no kind of, was there no sort of, like, anybody in the neighborhood who, just anybody in the neighborhood who kind of picked up on the odd behavior and kind of, you know, looking out for you guys, you and your sister? I mean, was nobody kind of there to kind of try and put a stop to it?
It takes a village to look after a child.
Well, here's what happened. My mother would knock on the doors of all of our neighbors and tell them when they open the door, I'm going to cut your head off.
Oh.
So the police were always coming to our house. This wasn't something that was hidden. They didn't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
You know? So eventually, by the time I think I was 15, I was leaving one morning and it was spring. So, you know, we have a mud room in Canada because you have the snow, you take your boots off. It's just a little tiny 4x4 room. So you have a door to the living room and then 2 doors to outside.
Yeah.
When I left for school that morning, I left the living room door open. I left the, the main exterior door open, and the screen door was left ajar because it stuck. It never clicked. And when it clicked it, you'd had to hit it a few times to open up the screen door. That morning, my mother was in the kitchen. She grabbed a butcher knife. She yelled at my sister that you're a witch, and she ran after her with the butcher knife. And my sister, only because I left the doors open, was able to make it outside. And my mother chased my sister around the car, and the neighbors saw and heard her screaming for her life. They called the police. The police came, the mental institution came, and they took her away in a straitjacket.
Right. So now it's getting real. Obviously, it's got to the point now
it's getting really bad.
Where the authorities are involved.
She was a witch.
So yes. That your sister was a witch.
No, she was saying that my sister was a witch and that she had to die. She had to die because this is what the voices told her.
Right. Okay. But so she's having some sort of trauma there, where she's basically come to the conclusion that I don't know whether your sister is responsible for something or I don't know. Like you say, the voices have just basically give her this sort of reasoning to go and do this.
And all that as well. Crazy. She's going to be totally not aware of anything around her with all that, I should imagine.
So at this point, here we go. She's now attempted murder, and I'm a minor. My sister, I think, was 18 at the time. She left. That was it. Even though my mother went to a mental institution, after 3 months, she came back. They allowed her to come back into a house with a minor, which was shocking.
So is that a case of that she started behaving in while she was in custody? I mean, what did the behavior not subside? Because I mean, from what you're telling us, it sounds quite extreme from when she was in the house. I mean, is there anything special about the house in particular? I mean, I know you say you moved 100 miles away, but was there any sort of... Well, no, I'm thinking, was there any sort of family connection, any sort of inheritance, or was it a house that you bought because you moved there, or how did you come about the house? I mean...
Well, no, the house itself was actually built by our neighbor. They built a house next door, and then they moved into that one, and then we moved into this one. So it was only a second-time owner, and they were But what was started already in Toronto was just progressing more and more and more when we got up there. It got so bad by the time when she came back, it started even getting worse. she would be sitting in her chair all day, whacking herself with one hand with a boot on her head. She would hitting herself with a boot, and then the other hand with a log, and then she would lift up her leg as high as she could and then just dead drop it. And she would do this for 16 hours a day until when soon as dusk came, then she'd retreat to her room, and then here came the screaming and the pounding, and I don't know what the hell was going in there. I always tried to catch her off guard by running into her room, and always she'd be lying in the bed still.
I mean,
and I'm like,
what was you expecting to see? I mean, it's like, obviously as a young child, you got a vivid imagination. You're sat in your room and you can hear these noises. I mean, you've trying to say you wanted to catch her off guard. I mean, yeah. I mean, even as a 15-year-old, I mean, I could. I mean, if it was me in that position, I'd be like gearing myself up to kind of burst into that room to think, what am I going to come across if I do happen to see something, you know, and how am I going to deal with it if I do come face to face with this,
pass on?
You know, this
entity? It could pass on.
Well, I was going to ask as well, actually, because I mean, I know your mother was saying like about your daughter and saying that she was a witch, but I mean, did you not worry that whatever it was, that if it was a possession case, that one of these spirits could affect yourself or your sister in a negative way?
No, that never crossed my mind. It got, by the time I was in the 10th grade, I from kindergarten to the 10th grade, I was an academic student. I won every award. I was an overachiever. I was the captain of every team. By 10th grade, I was losing it.
Right.
I could not handle the stress of this constantly every day. I mean, I would leave in the morning and go hike up at the river, sometimes sleep under a tree.
So it was affecting your academics then as well, wasn't it? Because I mean, it's not only affecting your home life, but I mean, it's like the repercussions of it and the kind of the sleep deprivation and everything, and the worry about your family unit, and you're going to school and trying to excel in whatever you are trying to excel in. It is going to have an impact. There's definitely going to be a degrading in your grades, in your motivation, in just kind of your social.
So was that your escape, sort of your escapism of working hard at school and what you're doing, so you'd get home and like it's like a sort of like a different life?
Well, I was trying to impress someone who was never there. I wanted my parents to know that I was good in school and doing well, but you know, I excelled for no one. No one. I got no.
I was just about to say. I mean, if you should always. I mean, obviously you try and make your parents proud or whatever, but ultimately, if you're going out to try and achieve something, do it for yourself. You know, first and foremost.
I mean, during all this, I was growing up by myself. I was doing my own laundry at 8 years old.
Sounds like you had a lot on your plate, a hell of a lot.
Well, we had no food because she ate like an animal. It got to the point where we had to take all of our food and put it down in the basement in a freezer and put a chain on it. Because let me just set the scene for you. She was 5 feet tall. Mm-hmm. And she was probably 260 pounds. She voraciously ate like an animal. I'd never seen anything like it. It was inhuman. And then what happened one particular day, this is what changed everything. I happened to come home. It was in the summer. We have a basement, and there's 2 ways to get to the basement. One from inside the house, you go down the stairs, one from outside the house. I was coming in from outside the house. I parked my bike, came down the stairs, and I saw her downstairs with a hacksaw trying to cut the chain off the freezer. The only thing I could think of to say was I yelled, "Hey!" She turned around. She looked at me and snarled at me like an animal. Her eyes were just these black holes. And then she dropped the hacksaw and went running upstairs. And when I say running upstairs, you're talking about a woman who's as wide as she is tall.
Right.
She was 5 feet tall, like 260 pounds. I don't know if you can imagine that kind of body shape.
Yeah.
But she ran upstairs, And for some reason, I was absolutely drawn to the terror of it. I was terrified, but I wanted this to end. By 10th grade, you know, I think I was 16 when this happened. I was done.
Was you
I
just
want
more
you kill
frustrated,
me or I kill you?
Was it a frustration by that point? Because obviously, you know, you've been going through this behaviour, having to deal with this behaviour. Was you on your own with your mother by this point as well? Because you say your sister's left,
yes.
Your dad's never home, so you're in a house with a woman who you don't trust at this point. Let's face it. And like you say, especially if you're sleeping with a hockey stick and pushing furniture up against your door to try and, you know, keep yourself protected. Was there any, I mean, you said about the incident about the soup, but I mean, was there any other incidents where you felt physically scared for your life or threatened? Yeah.
Well, she when I put the armoire against the door, she came sometimes, usually just once a night. And she would come and rattle my door to try and get in. And then when she couldn't get in, she'd be screaming, going down the hallway and whacking herself. I could hear the thuds. And there was one, I say this in my book, there was one, I think it was the very first time it happened. She opened my door and I stood up. I got up out of bed and then she closed the door really quick. And then I went and opened the door and we had a really long hallway. And as I was looking down the door, I could see her walking down the hallway because the moon was really bright. I mean, it sounds like a horror movie because it really was. She was whacking herself with this log and screaming and shaking her head back and forth, you know? And I was just, at that point, I was completely traumatized. And that's when I began to put the armoire. And the really, really bad stuff where I was putting the armoire, that was like 4.5 years. And this 4.5 year period, this never stopped. She was screaming, hitting herself, talking in these languages back and forth in all different tones. This went on for at least 4.5 years. But the incident, I'll finish the story about when I went downstairs and I chased her up the stairs. She went up the stairs, you know, so quick when I caught her, you know, hacksawing the chain, you know, I went after her. She beat me. I'm 16 years old. I'm 6 foot, 1/2 inch, you know, and I'm thin as a rail. I'm 126 pounds.
It's like she had a superpower of speed.
Yes, she beat me up the stairs. She went into her room. She slammed the door so hard that it sucked all the air out of the whole house. All the windows were shaking. And the door depressed. So she was leaning against the door. I was trying to open the door. You know, I was much stronger than her. I couldn't open the freaking door. I was trying to pry the door handle. You know, I was in a state not of just shock, but I was, you know, you mentioned, was I frustrated? No, I wasn't frustrated at all. This was life or death to me. Either I had to kill her or she had to kill me. This is where we were after all these years. I couldn't deal. The PTSD, the trauma of it was killing me. I was falling apart. So I tried shaking the door handle. I couldn't move the door handle. So I could hear her snarling behind the door, like going like this, like this. And, you know, she was a very short lady with high vocal cords. She had short vocal cords. She had a very high voice. And it was so, and I was just like, I was drawn to the evil. I was drawn to it. It was like, it's you or me now. This is it. So what happened was I waited there for 10 minutes. I stood there in silence. And then I saw the door depress because she was leaning up against the door. It was one of those doors that was a cheap door. It's really light, so it's hollow inside.
Yeah, like sort of plyboard.
Yeah, I could see the depression, her depressing the door. When she stood back from the door, I saw the door become loose now and the handle become loose. So, you know, I kind of like, kind of like moved my fingers a little bit getting ready. You know, you kind of prepare yourself. I swung open the door, and at that very second, she was in a gnarled grin, and I saw the left side of her temple and her eyebrow bulging. It was bulging, and like you press a balloon on one side and the other side becomes bigger. That's exactly what was going on in her forehead, on the left side of her face only. And her eyes, she had no pupil.
Would you say at this point you felt like this was definitely a demonic possession rather than a mental health or anything like that?
I would say through speed, and like you were saying there about looking like, someone trying to get out.
Well, so, I mean, well, that's kind of a conflicting thing then, isn't it? Because on one hand, I mean, like, if it can explain the fact that this is why your mother's behaving this way, and she's in distress, if you like, she's being possessed, and it mustn't be held captive. You're not having a pleasant experience, are you? I mean, how did that make you feel? I mean, did you not think, well, she's doing these things to me, she's making me feel this way, but if it can be explained by an external force, another person or another influence, it can't,
by sounds of things.
I mean, is it not that protection of your mother over, was there any sort of research into how to combat it?
No, it never crossed my mind what was going on. Never crossed my mind. Because it happened so gradual, it's like the frog in the boiling water. You turn up the temperature and you don't realize it. Like I say, I would never go to school and say, "Oh my God, you can't believe what's happening in my house." I never said a word to anybody. It was as if it's like it was completely normal.
Right.
Even though it was extremely abnormal, it was completely normal.
So, I mean, was there ever any sort of, exorcism? I mean, obviously, you've seen, you must have been aware of like the movie, The Exorcist. I mean, did you not ever draw any sort of conclusions that, she might need this attention?
Or any other government departments as well?
Nope. Never crossed my mind. I had, like I said, it was the weirdest thing. And if you talk to children that grow up in traumatic situations, they don't know what's wrong.
To be honest, a lot of them block a lot of it out as well. So, it's a case of they
I've got no father there. So it's just me and her. And the police were there all the time. She set the house on fire several times. The fire department was there. She burned everything in the house. I had no clothes, no toys, no nothing. Everything that came into the house, she threw in the fire. I had nothing. I was wearing girls' clothes that were handed down that my dad would give me from his 6 brothers and sisters' kids, and I was stealing food. There was no food in the house. I stole food in the wintertime from the kids at school. I made up all these elaborate schemes to go into the lunch, into the closets where kids kept their lunches and steal food. And in the summertime, I stole out of gardens. I stole vegetables out of gardens and went down and washed them at the creek. I never attributed that any of this was demonic, was even abnormal. I was just living my life, and I had no idea. I mean, I was in abject terror. So, I was, when she opened the door and I saw her head bubbling, and I saw her eyes, that she had no iris. I ran outside. She chased me. She slammed the door. She didn't follow me outside. I went outside and I was shaking so bad. I tried to talk to myself and I was going. I couldn't say one word.
Was there no one you could turn to at that point? I mean, what did you do after? I mean, you're outside. I wouldn't want to be going back into the house at all at this point. Now that'd be me.
Well,
I'd be
what
done.
Happened. I tried to gather myself. See, our phone was right inside the second mudroom door. It was right inside. So I just opened the door to see if she was there. She wasn't there. The phone had a long cord. I grabbed the whole phone and I took it outside. Those were the days of rotary dial.
Yeah.
So for 20 minutes,
I've got one.
I tried to dial the phone number where I knew my dad was, because he had a girlfriend at the time and he happened to be there that day. I think it was a Saturday afternoon.
Ah, right. So was your dad just popping in to check on the kids at this point? I mean, it sounds like your dad's basically left your mother.
He's absent. He's completely abandoned. He's gone. He'd just show up maybe for a few hours on a Saturday, and then be gone. you know. But I was trying to dial the phone. It took me 20 minutes to dial the phone because I couldn't get my finger into the rotary, into the hole to dial the number. I was so traumatized. And his girlfriend answered the phone after 20 minutes. I finally got the number. I dialed it wrong probably 12 times. She got on the phone and I was just, you know, she recognized my voice. She put my dad on. I couldn't really say anything. And he said, okay, I'm on my way over. He came over. He tried to talk to me. I couldn't really say anything, but mom, you know, I got out.
I suppose if he knows what the situation is, he probably had a pretty kind of good idea about, you know, you were definitely in
how deep it was and how
he had no clue because it was
so how was she behaving
bad.
How was she behaving on those Saturday afternoons when he did come round? I mean, it's strange to, because obviously what you say about when she was taken away and put in an institute, that she was released after 3 months. I mean, it you know, it seems that it was she was able to turn it off and on, or if it is a possession that these
they go away when they know they're being subjected.
Yeah, but they're playing games, aren't they? It's like, you know, if it's almost like a proof thing. It's like, you know, so we've all done that thing where we've learned a new skill and we go to show our friends and we say, hey, check what I can do. And then you don't do it. You do it bad.
She signed herself in.
So she would,
Institute. And let me tell you an interesting story about this. When I was researching for my book, I actually called that mental institution and I said, I want the records. And they said, well, from the 70s and 80s, they would have been destroyed. And I said, and I had the lady on the phone and she said, well, you know, just give me your name. Sometimes we might keep them. Who knows? And she's typing in I can hear her clacking, you know, on her computer. And she goes, how weird. She goes, we kept all of her records and they're archived off campus.
Because they're a strange case. It's an odd case, isn't it? That'll be why. They wouldn't have kept them otherwise. Yeah.
And she said, I'll go get them and I'll call you back. Well, she never called me back. I ended up calling back and I said, I want those records. Oh, no, there's no records.
Really?
Oh, there's no records. No. No records. We don't know what you're talking about. We don't know anything. So something happened. And I talked to an exorcist who was in Canada during that period of time. So he knows the protocol. He told me that something would have happened when she was in the mental institution to sequester her records away. That was policy back then. They would have archived her records or else they would have thrown them away because it was just build up a paper.
Yeah. I mean, most companies will get rid of them, but I mean, if it's a strange or interesting case, it's you know, they do it in hospitals where it's like, you know, they'll have a staff photographer, for instance, where like if there's something that the doctors have never seen before, they take special note of that more. And they'll get that put into a special archive. So for them to say that literally none of the records from that era have survived apart from 1 or 2 files and your mother's are included does suggest that there was something
there. Have you tried chasing it up more to see if...
Yes, and I'm going to do it this week. I called last week, actually. And, oh, no, I can't. The right person for looking those up isn't here. You know, the interesting thing is when I had that lady on the phone, she and in real time put it in the computer and she says, well, how weird. She says, those are archived. All your mother's files have been archived off campus, and I'll go get those for you. And then the next time I call, she never calls me back.
Have you actually spoken to the same woman? Is it the same woman you're speaking to as well? Because she did seem quite helpful from your first instance, you know.
But I don't remember her name, and that was one thing I hit myself about, that I don't remember.
I always do that.
You got 2 records there as well, because you've got the records that were actually filed away, and you've actually got the records now that are on the computer. So that there must be a trace on that record on the computer.
Especially if there's police records as well. I mean, you know, I'd assume that if she was that much of a kind of not problem, but you know, problem for the case for the police, like they would have had a file on her, you know, on all of her activities. You know, anytime the police were involved in an incident, they would have had those on file. Same with the fire brigade. If you know there was several fires and they had to intervene, I mean, so you said that you've spoken to an exorcist since. Do you feel like you could have gone down that route? I mean, as a 15-year-old, you probably don't realize what's going on, and you probably think, you know, like you say, you had no clue because it was so gradual. But, you know, in retrospect, would you think that, you know, would you have gone down that road?
Well, you know, since then, for the last 40 years, I've studied every possession case from the 13th century and on. I've listened to every transcript. I've read every transcript. I listened to every tape. I can even tell, like when you listen to the Annalise Michel tapes, I can hear the exact same gait in her voice as I did in my mother's. There is a speech that they use. There is a gait. You know, when you walk, people have a certain gait. Mm-hmm. Well, you have that in speech too. And you have these, you know, demons use these inflections. They use this gait, and they've got this type of speech that you can hear all the familiarities, because they all say the same things. They all say the same. They have absolute hate. They have absolute rebellion. They're blasphemous, and they all speak the same language because of their nature. And when I've heard these tapes and looked at all these transcripts for possession tapes, you know, of course, there's a bunch of hoaxes out there, but the ones that are real, the ones that went, oh my gosh, we have no explanation for this, you know, all of them have the exact same features.
Yeah, so we're not talking like, you know, ghostly possession or spiritual possession, like in that respect. You're talking demonic. So, you know, like, you know, not just being possessed by the spirit of a dead relative or a ghost, for say. You're talking entities that are entities. Yeah. So you know, it's so bizarre, isn't it? The whole thing. I mean, I do believe what you're saying there, because I mean, in the cases that I've looked into, you are right. They do all have the same sort of pitch, tone, how the things they say. Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, you know, they're all very aggressively, you know, explicit, you know, unnecessarily, really. I mean, I was saying actually to Taylor a couple of weeks ago, you never get pleasant possession cases, do you, where it was a helpful possession? They do seem to be the negative side, and I think that, you know,
there must be some good chaos. If there is some evil there.
Is it?
Well, you know,
without the other.
If you're married, and if you've been married for a long time, there's even no way that your wife could hide her voice. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
you know her voice in a crowd. Yeah. Okay. Well, after 12 years of hearing demonic speech, my brain and my mind, I can hear the familiarities. I can tell people that are demonically possessed by the way they speak. I can hear. It's like a mother language. It's like, you know English because you grew up, you heard it being spoken. You know, you can tell somebody who's from Cockney compared to somebody who's from Manchester, compared to somebody who's from Derbyshire. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You can tell that little bit of dialect.
Little subtle nuances
maybe it's
in the
just
dialect.
on one word. Well, that's what I can hear in demonic speech, because I've heard it for so long. I heard it for hours a day for over 12 years. I heard them arguing inside her, arguing for possession of her, just like in the Annalise Michel case.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, I'll tell you this, there was 2 lucid times that my mother in 30 seconds reached out to me, that the madness stopped, and she looked at me and she said to me, they're coming into me. They run up the back of my spine and they perch in my head, and then snap, and she'd go right back into it. There were 2 times where in 30 seconds she went lucid and she sounded like my mother. And I've never heard my mother speak. I've never heard my mother speak normally in my entire life, except for those 2 incidences. And when the police would come over, I would hear from the other room, the police interviewing her. Oh no, officer, there's nothing going on. There's nothing. Everything's fine. Everything's normal. Those were the only times I ever heard my mother speak in a normal voice and speak like a normal person.
It almost kind of puts, I mean, obviously, if you're kind of, you know, say if you're the guy who reported your mother in these instances and the police have shown up for these reasons, then you know, it kind of puts, well, whoever phones the police, it's almost casting them into doubt as well, you know, because obviously when the police attend and you've got this perfectly lucid woman saying, you know, would you like a cup of tea, officer? And, you know, everything's perfectly fine, then you know, they're not going to take the next incident as serious. They're going to be like, it's just a hoax. They're not going to bother coming round, you know. And,
that's right. They are crafty, intelligent entities, and they want to hide. See, this is what they did in my mother. She ate herself to death. You know, like in the Annalise Michelle case, they starved her to death. She ate like a voracious animal. And when I remember the fire department coming in and going to our fireplace, which was 4 feet away from my mother, who's sitting in her chair. She's still whacking herself with a log, and they ran right by her, right by her. We're talking a tiny room, and they're, you know, a bang in the chimney because the chimney's glowing red hot, and they got guys on the roof tearing stuff off, because she threw everything in the fire. She never even stopped when the fire department came in, but when somebody spoke to her of authority, she became lucid. And when she went to the mental institution 2 times. The second time was the culmination of what I told you about when my dad came over.
Yeah.
Well, my dad opened the door. She grabbed him, threw him to the ground, and started scratching his face and snarling like an animal. He was completely taken off guard. My dad was 5'7", probably 170 pounds at the time, could easily overtake her. She threw him down like a doll.
So she's expressing strength that she doesn't possess usually. Yes. Yeah.
When he was able to break away, he ran outside, and I ran outside with him, and he was in shock because he didn't know what happened. He was in absolute shock, and then he called the police department, and then the mental institution came and took her away in a straitjacket for the second time. And then 3 months later, she came back.
So can I ask if it was a religious institution that she was put in, and had you ever attempted to put a Bible near her or even a cross, and what if you did, what her reaction would have been?
No, we had none of those in the house. Nothing like that in the house. She was actually excommunicated as a Jehovah's Witness years before.
Okay.
So there were none of those kind of objects or anything in our house. We were a non-religious family.
Right, okay. So, well, it's interesting that, isn't it? Because, I mean, obviously the fact that you're non-religious, but...
gives more power to the demon, doesn't it, really? Because there's nothing to stop them from carrying on what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's not like the power of Christ or anything like that.
No one confronted the entities. See, that's the whole thing. We see that in the Bible. Jesus confronts the entities, you know, and boom, they're gone.
Yeah, the only one who can destroy them.
Well, yes, this is it, because if you were a house of faith, then you know the logic. Well, to be honest, I mean, I come from a house which is like, you know, my parents were, you know, one thing, but never imposed it on us. But like, you know, we grew up in a house which wasn't very religious, but in the sense that if we were devout, you know, and somebody in the household was kind of expressing these sort of symptoms of, you know, demonic possession, then it'd be straight up the church, see the priest, see the vicar, get them round to kind of see what they could do. And when you come from a world where that's not you're not kind of interested in the religion side of things, then it's not even going to enter the mind, isn't it, to kind of bring somebody into it. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it depends whether you believe religion or not for a start, but obviously if you were from a family like that, and you were in a similar situation, then you would have that sort of, you'd assume you'd have that protection. Do you know? And I mean, this is the thing. It's like, it is a tragic story because, I mean, obviously it's like, it's sad because, obviously there was family problems there. It sounds like you were brought up pretty much to fend for yourself, you know, and it's.
I thought you did a really good job as well, to be honest.
So to be fair, I think it's one of those situations where once your sister had left, it was down to you, and if you don't know how to deal with it, then it's just a case of just letting it run its course, isn't it? I mean, how did it all end up coming to a head? I mean, what? So was it just the case that your father took you away from there? Was you still living in the house the second time she came back after the 3-month period away?
No, that's not what happened. She after 3 months, she signed herself out. She came right back home. Social services. I mean, how is that able? I mean, with a minor in the house.
Yeah.
You've got all these multiple police and nobody, even the doctors, her own doctors. No, everybody covered it up because no one knew what the hell was going on. No, this was beyond their diagnosis, you know, and this is how these demonic cases are. They're beyond. They can't figure it out, you know, because they're looking inside the box for the answers, and the answers are not in the box.
Totally.
So they can't find the answers. You know, they don't know what to do, so they try to cover it up. Social services told me, "Oh, you're into music and stuff. Well, you should just run away." That's what they were telling me.
Seriously,
they just wanted me. Yeah, they wanted me out of the house so they didn't have to deal with this because they were responsible for this, and they did nothing. Time and time again, the police would come to our house, the mental institution, she'd be right back. And at one point, I was so sarcastic and angry. I said, so the only time you're going to do anything is if I come to your office here with a knife in my back.
Yeah.
That's the exact words I said to them.
Well, you find this more often than not in a lot of different situations where it's like victims report these incidents, and not just, I mean, I'm not just talking about, you know, incidents like you've had, but, you know, all types of incidents, and they report it and it doesn't get picked up on or investigated
and then they hide it away.
And it comes to the point where it takes the victim to be murdered for them to start taking it seriously
because
and actually putting out an investigation.
The harder it is to believe. So you know,
yeah, totally.
You
I
know?
mean, we live in a world now where, you know, I think everything's got to be considered, and you know, if you can't explain it, then there's obviously got to be an explanation. And I mean, we go on that motto. What was it? You know, it's Sherlock Holmes, isn't it? It's like whatever's left. If you've looked at all the explanations, it must be true because, you know, you've covered literally every explanation you could possibly think of. Whatever's left, even if it is the fantastic and a bit kind of, you know, a bit weird, mind-blowing, then
but it must be.
You can't kind of discount it as a possibility. Exactly. You know, and I mean, until we know more about, you know, the world and how the spiritual world works, you know,
we think we know more than we actually do, and it's a lot of theorizing,
isn't it?
Yes.
At the moment, with the way we are, the place we are in society, in history, you know, we're not there to know the answers, but you know, we can theorize on whys and wherefores and all the rest of it. I mean, so you know, how did this come to an end then? I mean, so you were a case of that you were told to run away. Did you take that advice?
No. What had happened was that the 3 months were up and she came right back home again. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. You know, I was going to kill her or she was going to kill me. And that had been going on for a couple of years. There were actually times where I was reaching out for attention so bad that I was going to bomb scare my high school because I just didn't know what to do. I didn't even think once about talking to anybody. Never crossed my mind. One teacher by the 10th grade when I started to because I started to skip school.
Well, I would sign support, like I said earlier, the support for children in you know, earlier on or back the 70s, 80s, it wasn't as I mean, we kind of made a joke about it as like the sort of medical attention you'd get in school if you know had a serious accident would be a wet paper towel on it, you know, and that'd be the maximum you'd get, whereas today we're such kind of nanny culture that we literally worry too much, if you like. But I mean, it's a good thing. I mean, kids need to be kind of protected in these areas, and like, look, you know, if there's problems at home, that should have been picked up on by a number of people. There were so many failures in your story in terms of people who could have intervened and helped you. You've got teachers, you've got neighbours, you've got people all around you.
Social services.
Police, social services. Exactly. And I mean, for the fact that nobody kind of, you know, fought to try and get you and your sister out of that situation. It's shocking. I mean, but again, it's the world we live in now. I mean, if, the parent would have done even a fraction of that, it would have been those children are being taken from that home and being put into protective custody, protective services. And, it's sad because there was probably a lot of, again, not just, into your terms of what was going on, but a lot of abuse, sexual abuse, mental abuse from parents, and it all went, under the rug, and nobody kind of, and like you say, it's only now that, people feel like, somebody makes that first step, comes out and says, do you know what, this happened to me, and I'm putting this story out because hopefully it can kind of give strength to other people who've been in that situation.
And in certain cases, whistleblowers are the ones who get shot at the end of it because they're trying to help society by telling them the truth, and they always get.
So how do you think it's affected you over your life? Do you feel like you kind of have it's made you a stronger person? Do you feel like it's
happier now?
Are you a happy person now in your life? You said you've got a couple of kids, a couple of daughters.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I just finished the sequel to this book, which is called The Aftermath. So exactly what you're asking, I wrote about.
Okay, cool.
It's completely destroyed my life. I mean, the PTSD over the last 40 years has been so. I mean, I still black out. I blacked out 12 times in the last 2 years.
Oh shit!
I cannot fall asleep. When nighttime comes, I have to medicate myself where I actually get knocked out, because when I put my head down on the pillow, I start shaking so bad and my face goes numb. I mean, this is my life. I wake up. What wakes me up is my face being numb,
right.
Because the drug's wearing off, and I can't tell you, I've never been able to hold a job, because I can't sit still. Yeah. I mean, the PTSD, it's all in my book. It's extreme. I've lived my life on the extreme because I can't process life. I can't process routine. I can't process people. I can't be around loud noises. Everybody's a threat level. I have to be in a room checking out the threat level of everybody.
It's put you on edge, hasn't it? Yeah.
Yes, because that's how I grew up. I grew up always wondering, where my mother was in relation to a door.
Yeah.
Or a weapon that either me or her. So, if she was accessible to one, how would I deal with it?
Exactly,
or if I needed one. So so my whole life is that.
What ultimately happened with your mother then? I mean, it was. It sounds like you kind of got to a point where you wanted to leave, and you did. So was she just left on her own to face this, deal with it on her own?
Well, what happened was that my dad sold the house. He put her up in a small apartment on Main Street in another town that was a half an hour away. And I prepared to leave for California. I went down and lived with my sister and got a job. She got me a job down there at the biggest record store at the time in Canada. And I collected my money to go to California. That was my plan. I had it for a year. That was my escape plan. So in essence, I did run away, but I went to see my mother one more time about a week before I left. And when I went up to see her, she answered the door. She didn't even look at me when I walked in. She went, I followed her into her room. She laid down. She was continuing doing her voices and talking and arguing with herself. And at one point, I was just stood there. I was sitting on the edge of her bed, and she snapped out, became lucid for 1 second. She reached over to a drawer. She pulled out a letter in an envelope. She handed it to me. No sooner than it left her fingertips, she went right back into, and started going into her thing. And I said to myself, what the hell? And I got up and I left. I said, I'm done. I'm done with this. I couldn't handle seeing her like this anymore. It wasn't that I was compassionate about it. She was my mother, but
It comes to a point, doesn't it, where
me,
it's
traumatizing me,
terrorizing.
and I was mentally depleted. So I went back to my dad's house, and 1 week later, I left for California. I slept on the beach in Santa Monica Pier. I was homeless. I had met my wife a few days later, who became my wife of 34 years, and we're still married together. And 2 weeks later, when I had been down there, I'd given my aunt my phone number where I was. They contacted me. They said, hey, your mother died. And the coroner said that she had died presumptuously 12 days later, and which came out to be because when she died, she was decomposing. So the neighbors smelt it.
Yeah, so she was basically left in the apartment on a road. Well, she died 12 days earlier, and then it was the fact that the smell alerted the neighbors.
Yes. And then they told me what day that the coroner said that she probably died on. It was the day I left. So it was like the wringing of the hands, the demonic entities, our work is done here. She died, and that was it. And for my story, this is where it all began. That my trauma and mental stability and torment, this is just the beginning of it for me. This is why I wrote the book, The Aftermath, because it just started for me. I had nightmares for 13 years. I had insomnia for about 15 years. I was 6 feet, half an inch, and 126 pounds. I was bulimic. I was throwing up all the time. I didn't know which way was left or right, because I didn't know how to live. Now I'm on my own, and I don't know how to live life. All I knew was a mother trying to kill me every night. That's all I knew. But I did have the survival skills to be able to, since 7 or 8 years old, doing my own laundry, stealing food, and all of this.
Exactly, yeah. So
I
you
had
know how to look
that's
after
why it
yourself
was no
in a
big
lot
deal
of
to come to
ways.
California.
Can I ask what you said your mother passed you a letter? Was that something that you want to keep private, or is that something you can elaborate on a little bit?
Well, all I can tell you is I've moved a couple of times, and it's away in a box somewhere, and I can't find it. I was going to include it in the second book, but I'm having issues finding it. More of the issues of it are more that I really don't care anymore.
Yeah, I was just wondering whether it kind of explained anything, or it kind of gave you a glimpse into kind of... because I'm assuming that if she did write that, then that might have been more her rather than anyone else speaking, Well,
there was one sentence in it that I remember very clearly, and she used to tell me this when I was 3 years old. And she said this in this letter when I was 19, ready to leave. It said she wrote a paragraph about not to be a wild man, and she had the wild man in the quotations, and that's what she used to tell me when I was a kid. Don't grow up to be a wild man. And I don't know if you know the biblical connotations of those exact words, because she was a Jehovah's Witness for many years, and in theology, the word wild man has a lot of connotations to it. It has a biblical presence to it that is about the demonic, and it is about the demonic entities that were reigning in Babylon at the time. Okay. So it's very prophetic. And that's the only thing out of a whole bunch of nonsense in it that I remember her being constant with, throughout my lifetime. When I was 3 years old, she said, don't grow up to be a wild man.
Can I ask, do you know, sure. Do you know why she was excommunicated? Was there any particular reason, or was it just a case of that she'd lost faith, or that she wasn't being as kind of, what's the word, forthcoming to the religion, like being available for whatever the situation? I mean, to be excommunicated, you must have done something.
Well, that could have opened the gates for the demons to come in.
Well, there's a couple of things there that kind of obviously that's just a bit strange, because obviously it's like something's obviously happened in your hometown before you moved, because she's been excommunicated and you've moved 100 miles away, but your dad's been still left to travel and commute to his position at the, in Toronto. So, there was something there that happened in your town where why you moved. I just don't, I can't put my finger on it, but I mean.
Well, the moving, I think it had to do with, and this is speculation on my part, but I think we moved when I was very little because, like I told you back then, seances and Ouija boards were popular. So was swinging.
Oh, right.
And I think that may have had, because I had an extremely over-sexualized childhood before I moved from Toronto. So when I was 3 years old, I remember all kinds of things that I shouldn't know. So something was going on, and that explains that. But, what was your other question?
Have it been an SRA? Satanic ritual abuse?
Very possible. I would not conclude that out.
Yeah. Well, I think there's definitely a lot of different avenues you could look at. I mean, in terms of like explanation. I mean, it like you say, in terms of demonic possession, it does sound very compelling. I can totally see why that might be, why you think that and why that's believed. It's definitely.
Well, my cousin, who was my mother's sister, so the ones that were in cahoots with the seances. Yeah. She was my age, because both sisters had 2 kids, and she was my age. She hung herself in the basement with 3 kids.
Wow. So,
there was demonic things going on both sides of the family.
Yeah, I think that there was definitely. So, I mean, do you know what? I mean, whose sister was that? Your mother's sister?
That was my mother's sister, her daughter.
Right. Okay.
Which was my cousin.
Right.
And was that before any change in your mother?
I think it's.
That was after.
It's the right. Do you know much about your grandfather?
My grandfather on my mother's side?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was from Italy. I was named after him, and like I said, my mother adored him. She just adored him.
She did,
I guess he was a really great man. I was named after him. But as far as anything spiritual for that, I don't know. Like I said, my parents' generation were the generation that never spoke about anything. They never spoke about anything, whether it was good or bad. And my father comes from Italy, and if you know, Italy,
so it's just like
we don't the worst exorcism problems on the planet.
Yeah, and you're right in the middle of like the religious of
it's the heart, isn't it? Yeah, totally.
And the superstitious.
Yes, yeah. Yes. I was going to say, how's your sister doing now after all this?
She is completely estranged from me. She denies all of this stuff. She wants nothing to do with it. She became a Jehovah's Witness, and basically, she never even told her kids, and her kids are in her 30s.
You did say that you were able to probe her for a bit of it,
it's like it never happened.
Did you? I mean, because you were saying earlier that you were able to probe a little bit and try and get a little bit of information.
Those were in the years when we were speaking. Now
right,
she's completely. Since I released this book, she's rejected me completely.
So she just basically wants to be kind of like, she's living a life and that's it now.
Like
for
a
her.
Hermit.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
she's completely isolated herself. She lives by herself. She has no friends, no nothing. She's like completely ejected from life.
So not a possibility that it could happen to her, is it?
Well, I find that, obviously it's like, when traumatic things happen to anybody, I mean, there's always a chance that people can be affected, and it affects them in many different ways. I mean, obviously, the idea that I think that in this case, I do believe that you probably are affected in some ways. Maybe not the demonic possession, but it has affected your life,
oppression,
and how you've kind of grown into the man you are, and how things that you should have, a childhood that you deserved rather than one that you had to endure. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and that's the thing. I think obviously I'm looking forward to reading your follow up. If you wanted to come on the show, it's
going to be out this week.
Oh, brilliant! We'll definitely send us a link. We'll make sure that we get that out for everyone to have a look at as well.
And can I say, are you like you said, you're still in that depression, and you've still got a lot of issues to deal with? Are you actually seen someone about that?
Well, for many years, I've gone to several psychiatrists. I've had some of them that tell me straight up, I can't deal with you. That is beyond. I can't help you with that.
It's just a bit far out of the realms of kind of typical, therapy, isn't it?
Yes, and I've even had one say, "Listen, the only help you could get is probably for someone who dealt with POWs that killed children in Vietnam and stuff like that." And I'm like, you know what? I don't need some guy telling me. Yeah. I've gone to so many of them, and they can't relate. You know, if you're gonna be an expert and talk to somebody on something, you better have gone through it yourself to be able to tell somebody how to deal with something, or else they're not going to relate.
Yeah, totally.
If I'm talking to you about Manchester rugby and football, and I don't know anything about Manchester rugby and football,
I really
have no reason to be in that area telling you. You know what I mean?
I can't
relate.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, but on people like that, they generally get you to answer your own questions in the sort of way they talk to you.
But this is in the same respect that writing the book and being able to, putting it out there.
They've never helped me.
And people who, right at the end of the day, what would you rather do? Would you rather go around telling, every individual people one at a time your story, hoping that the one of them might relate eventually, or putting it out there and have the people who have been affected by your story come to you and say, that happened to me? At the end of the day,
I was just going to say,
personally, on my mental health, if that was me putting myself out there, I'd be thinking, well, that's more the kind of the safer bet, because, I'm only going to have people who were genuinely kind of, moved,
been in that kind of experience,
been in a similar experience, that will contact me and want to engage. So, rather than me going engaging 500 people who aren't interested and think I'm a whack job, So, I think in terms of kind of meeting people who do relate, that is a way of,
moving
forward and trying to,
which your
help you out.
Did have the good idea.
Exactly.
Your
daughters have basically said that, and I think they're very, very smart for actually saying that. Well, we're going to have to wrap it up, Michael. We've run way over, but I always enjoy that. I love going over a little bit.
It's been a good conversation.
There's so much more. There was so much more that you just got to read the book, because there's so many details that are just like, oh my God, there's just not enough time, in 2 hours even. Yeah.
Well, we'll make sure those links are available to the book, which is available on Amazon. It is called The Devil Take the Hindmost, a true story of terror. Do check it out. Definitely
if you're
recommend
interested in this story, please check it out. Even his second book, and I know I will.
And we'll be posting links to the sequel as well. If Michael sends us a link over to that. Michael, thank you so much for joining us on the show. I wish we did have more time, but obviously once your new books come out, we'll be glad to have you on the show again.
Thank you so much for having me. Love you guys. Love your accent. I love talking to
thanks so much
across the pond.
Excellent. Well, it's been
such an
absolute pleasure. It really has. Well, thank you so much, Michael. We'll see you again. Yeah?
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you so much for the therapy session.
No worries.
Bye-bye, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Michael, for joining us on the show. It was a seriously interesting story, and
definitely,
there's a lot of kind of
twists and turns,
psychological kind of terror, trauma, if you like. Yeah. I mean, I'd be interested to find out what you guys at home think about the whole situation, what Michael went through.
Yeah, please give us your opinion.
You were saying, about kind of the sloth.
Yeah,
sort of demons. Yeah, the gluttony demons, in terms of
greed.
Because, when you think about possessions and stuff, you could argue that you've got this sort of demons are attacking evil sort of spirits.
Yeah.
But then on the gluttony side, that's exactly what you'd expect, wouldn't you? Sort of this sort of,
a part of it.
Not really kind of lazy and not really vicious in that way, but more likely to run away when confronted. But again, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot to Michael's story. There's a bit of a mystery in there, I think. If we'd love to hear your feedback.
Yeah. Or even go out and get the book and
totally. There will be a link in the description for the book. So hopefully you'll go over to Amazon and check that out.
Yes.
So there you go.
Which you can do straight away.
It'll be there. You go. It'll be in the description.
It will.
So going from one Canadian to another.
Oh yeah.
This week's promo, or this week's featured podcast, I should say, is Canadian Spirit.
Ah, right.
The hosts Kelly and Darcy, they're both supernatural and paranormal investigators. They do research for the Supernatural Paranormal Investigation and Research Institute, or Spirit, and they explore supernatural and paranormal and downright weird cases around Canada.
Good.
Using their skills they've honed as paranormal researchers, the podcast contains adult language and disturbing themes. It says, keep out of reach of children and the elderly.
Oh, yeah, you don't want to scare them.
So, you can check out their promo right now.
Hey guys, I'm Darcy, founder of Spirit.
And I'm Kelly, the Chief Technical Officer of Spirit.
Back in 2011, we formed the Supernatural Paranormal Investigations and Research Institute, searching for answers to mysterious things that were happening in our little corner of Canada.
And we haven't stopped searching for those answers ever since. Join us on our podcast, Canadian Spirit, as we dive into all of Canada's most famous and forgotten paranormal mysteries. Examine the evidence and try to figure out what might be behind Canada's ghosts, cryptids, and UFO encounters.
In Canadian Spirit, you'll get a peek behind the curtain and see for yourself what being a paranormal investigator is really like, and learn something about Canadian history, which isn't as boring as it sounds.
Even if it is, we're a pair of chuckle fucks, so we'll do our best to make it entertaining.
So come along for the ride and discover for yourself what makes the land of maple and hockey so wonderfully weird.
You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, wherever you find your podcasts. And remember,
raccoons are aliens, werewolves are perverts, and ghosts are just downright rude sometimes.
Thanks, guys, for submitting your promo. You can do too by sending us your promo over to neverstraightanswer@gmail.com. If we like it, we'll feature it, and we'll make a big song and dance about you for a couple of weeks. And it's all good.
It is.
It's
good
nice
for you,
to be,
good
it's nice
for
to
me.
be nice, isn't it?
It is.
Well, there you go.
It is.
What else am I missing? What else am I missing this week? I know we've not done a couple of segments recently, but we are coming back with some cool stuff.
We are
so
indeed.
Don't you worry.
Yeah.
For
we
all
like to
that
switch and mix it up for
content that we provide.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
but I think the interview was a bit longer than we anticipated.
This
so
week
we have
it
to
was.
short down
totally.
a little
But
bit
that's what I like about guests coming on the show when they do have an interesting, compelling story.
And it was nice little
and it
flow
raises
as well.
more questions than
answers. Yeah.
Then you kind of start, you don't mind going over that hour.
No.
So
yeah. You
let
just
us know what you guys think anyway. But moving on with the show, we do have some news.
We do.
And without further ado, here we go.
You do.
It's the news. Doobity-doo-doo. It's been an interesting week for news. God.
Oh, yeah. Terrible
what more do you
yesterday.
want? So, terrible yesterday?
Yeah, MP stabbing.
Oh, God. Totally. I mean, it was breaking news. When that happened, it was one of those where it was, he was stabbed during a surgery, which basically is a constabulary meeting where you can kind of go and have a face-to-face with your local MP, isn't it? And, have any gripes or, any ideas that you want to put forward. Chance to kind of get support for community projects.
Yeah, we all work as a community, and he's the person in charge of looking after certain stuff. Then we all need to have our little conversation.
So I mean, it's still unclear to the actual reasons. Because it went from being he was attacked, he was stabbed 6 times.
Yeah,
and he was fighting for his life, and then about 15 minutes later, it was the worst case scenario where he'd been announced to have died on the scene.
Yeah.
Now it kind of makes me think about there was other incidences where MPs have been attacked for beliefs or for their actions.
Yeah.
And even from the kind of the minimal where you got John Prescott getting hurled eggs at his head.
Yeah, the punch
or getting punched. When you've got these, he punched the guy, didn't he?
Did, yeah.
But I mean, that's kind of like how it starts, isn't it? Because it gets violence
once goes a bit over the top,
but he ends up going over the top.
Yeah.
To the point where, I mean, I can only imagine what it was that drove him to have a gripe with this guy. Because I mean, as all accounts, I mean, the guy's been an MP since literally as long as I've been alive on this planet. I mean, he started his MP career in 1983.
Yeah, when he was 20.
And it's one of those, isn't it, where I think, what did he do to deserve this,
I think
this sort of,
it hasn't been taken off the table of terrorists, but I don't think it is. I think it's basically frustrated people. There's a lot of frustration going around at the moment. Well, there has for a long time.
There's
honest.
A lot of people in dire situations and desperate circumstances, isn't there? But I mean,
especially with the money being taken away as well.
But that's no excuse.
It is no excuse.
I mean,
at
the end of, I think there's a lot of people feeling the pinch.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
At the end of the day, you cut back and do without rather than going out and committing a crime. I think, if you're
but this must have been the frustration that, I've been trying here, I've been trying
to get
pushing
planning
me
permission
there and everywhere, and then as frustration builds and builds, if it doesn't get dealt with, it's going to blow. And it obviously hasn't been. I'm not saying obviously, but it sounds like it hasn't been dealt with.
Again, it all comes down to what the actual reason for this was.
Still not letting off quite a lot of movies.
How frustrated people get about the silliest things.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Now, with it being like a constituent surgery or something, I mean, it could be anything like I've got noisy neighbours, or I've got there's a fucking street light that keeps waking me up in the middle of the night, or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
Now I'm not saying those were the reasons, but I mean,
what people think's ridiculous isn't ridiculous
exactly
to them
if they're passionate about it. And I mean, again, it's no excuse to doing these sorts of things. So it's just weird. It's just a strange situation. I don't really get it.
It's a shame that things have to. That come to this, like there couldn't be, stuff. Now they're talking about body, like having guards now with MPs.
Yeah, I mean, it's get to the point when you can't, when your MP won't do a face-to-face public.
Well, they're going to be doing door-to-door in a few years.
Exactly, and I mean, MPs in the UK have always been known for doing that, knocking on doors,
been free to go and talk to him and
being it,
but it just seems after year, it's getting tighter and tighter to even, either state your own opinion or go and see someone who you could go and see in a couple of years ago.
I mean, Citizens Advice were here in the UK.
All over.
They used to have branches all over the place. And you could go in and speak to somebody about whatever. If you had a legal problem or a housing issue or any issue at all, even if you'd been missold a product, you could go in and speak to them. And then all of a sudden they closed down all these centres where you could go in and get this advice. And they're now experiencing 700% increase in calls because people are in these situations. And I mean, and again, I don't know the reasonings and ins and outs behind this particular incident.
Exactly. But it's soon come clear in a few days.
Of course it will,
hopefully.
I mean, obviously, all we can say at this point is, our prayers and hearts go out to the family,
and friends,
and it's just a sad thing to have to hear, isn't it?
Shouldn't be hearing this kind of stuff, but it just seems to be there's more and more stabbings going along around the country at the minute, and it's getting beyond ridiculous.
I know. Right. Well, moving on in the news. Have you got anything else you'd like to talk about? I've got quite a lot of news. I'm just trying to get me.
Yeah, I've got a warning for
losing my voice a bit here tonight.
For drivers in the UK for their next MOT.
This is because he's coming up now. He's like, I've just found out something that pissed me off. Go on, what? Yeah.
Oh, this is just one of a number of things at the minute. Like you got that E10 fuel that destroys your blue.
You were
car.
talking about that last week, weren't you?
Yeah. But now we've got drivers who are going in for their MOT test need to watch out because there's apparently 13 million of us that driving around with alloys that are damaged. Now, they're looking at charging a fee of £270 for having damaged rims. So it's getting.
So are they damaging your car and then charging you for?
Yeah. Do you know, kids?
Potholes is damaging my rims, and now all of a sudden you're charging me for having damaged rims.
I'm thinking of charging the taxman for it. Which
what,
you
charging the road tax, the government.
Yeah.
Who does that?
You can claim for.
Is that the DVLA?
No, it'd be transport.
Transport authority.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Which I'm going to be looking into, and I may put in a claim.
He's going to put in a. He's going to kick He's going to kick
wear
off.
And tear. I could put in a wear and tear claim. I believe so.
Fair enough. Let us know how you get on.
Teenagers now are less likely to drive. Because it is so expensive now to start driving. It is.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it is very expensive. It's like having a second house.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
In a lot of ways,
yeah.
Like especially if it's like these, people who live in undesirable areas, but according to the insurance company, that is, like they don't live around there. No, they don't know what the hell it's like. But you've got to say I keep it in a underground secure vault, under a fucking a silk blanket,
with armed guards and towers,
with
dogs hanging around.
like landmines surrounding it,
and we'll still charge you $1,000.
Exactly, it's not safe enough.
No, anything to try and get the bloody money out of you, and they are actually looking from January to putting your insurance up. If you're driving a petrol or diesel car, and there's a new law that's coming in January to stop if whoever you're with now to charge you much more than what they've charged you to this date.
I told you it's going to be, can you could just like power your car on chip fat oil and all that.
Yeah.
It's quite simple to make, actually, apparently. It's just getting the volumes.
Yeah.
Anyway, talking about lawsuits, you brought up lawsuits, so I've got a story here that, we talked about this quite a while ago, and we do bring Subway sandwiches up quite a bit.
Oh, we love a bit of Subway.
But they always kind of find themselves in the middle of these conspiracy theories, and, I need to kind of look into them because I kind of started getting weirded out by Subway when I found out that they were... the company was called the Association of Doctors or something. So it's already they're trying to sell you on the health side, and it's backed by Association of Doctors.
Oh well, we'll have it then.
Well, of course, it's the healthy option when it comes to fast food.
Yeah, clinically tested.
So. When all these stories about the kind of questionability of the healthy nature of the food comes out, it's kind of intriguing. So we've had reports of the bread being made out of the same stuff yoga mats are made out of.
Yeah, delicious.
The meats were not actually meat. And this relates to the most recent scandal with a lawsuit, a $5 million lawsuit against the Subway franchise about fake tuna.
Fake tuna? How can you fake tuna? Was it dolphin?
No,
it must have been dolphin.
Well, there was apparently genetically not any ounce of tuna in the Subway sandwich.
Well, it's not tuna then, is it?
But they've had it thrown out of court now, right? So obviously the plaintiff who sued the restaurant for the tuna sandwiches weren't saying that they weren't really tuna.
Yeah.
The lawsuit basically says that the customers pay for premium premium of sandwiches containing tuna.
Yeah.
And Subway's tuna subs lack tuna altogether, so you can't really say that that's tuna, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know how they've managed to get away with it.
It'd be a little writing, or it's on the website. It says it's not tuna.
It'll probably state that like a tuna sub isn't tuna.
Yeah.
Like, or
this is the thing of like little.
There's no such fish as tuna sub.
Yeah, this is all like for the little texts that of information that you've got at the bottom. You know your the rights and all that, and go through the terms and conditions and stuff like that. No one has the time in the day to go through every single one. I mean, if we did, I think we'd be quite shocked.
Apparently, they turned around and said that there was only one person who's like complained, and it's the plaintiff. So, there wasn't.
There weren't enough people to turn around. It wasn't like
an outcry of loads of people going, "Hang on a minute." There was one person. So,
point, no.
That why. If no one else is complaining,
if I weren't happy what you were serving me and it was just me,
why even complain?
Yeah,
everyone else is using the tuna subs and that.
And it probably cost them both as well a bit of dough for going through the court and all.
They've probably brought them in a selection of subs to give to the judges and go, you can try it for yourself. Does it taste like tuna?
Yeah. It's
suck
not
on my foot-long hero. Yeah. Well, talking about food-related matters, because there's a bakery in the UK, which is quite cool, because they're called Get Baked.
Oh, right.
Which I like the name. With Get Baked in Leeds.
Right.
Rich Mayer, who's the owner, Myers. Rich Myers. Myers or Mayers. He's basically been told to cease and desist.
Oh, why?
Making their world famous, the world famous now, cookies.
No,
best sellers.
Cookies. Oh my days!
Yeah, told him he's not allowed to make his delicious cookies that are bringing joy to people. You know what I mean anymore? Because they look good as well. To be honest, right? Because they contain sprinkles.
Nothing wrong with
illegal sprinkles.
Oh, what? Well, they have cannabis in it,
laced with LSD.
Yes, boy.
Some other party prescription. No,
mushrooms.
Well, I don't know. Right. Well, basically, the owner of Get Baked is basically told that he's not allowed to use the sprinkles because they're not. They're not legal in the UK yet because they contain a red food colouring E127, which is banned here in the UK. So. He's not allowed to use it. But he says anyone who's into sprinkles will know that what he's on about, because sprinkles that you get in the UK are totally, his words, are totally shit.
Yeah, I can't argue with that.
They look wank. They bake wank, Myers said on Facebook. So obviously, with it containing the E number.
Yeah.
I think the kids obviously have enough E numbers.
And I think.
But no wonder they sold so well because they were like, fucking yes, getting a rush.
That's it.
It's like, whoa, get me some more of them fucking cookies.
It's a sugar rush and a half, son.
Yeah, I've just got fucking Sean Ryder and Bez hanging around outside your cookie shop.
Your cookie.
Yeah, I mean,
or Jay or Silent Bob.
Summit, so it'd be like, but all of them, all the cliche stoner duos would be stood outside, Get Baked,
come on, get
waiting for the re-number cookies.
Yeah.
Bill and Ted.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah.
And I'm actually quite intrigued to taste these sprinkles now.
You know what? They do look bigger, though, don't they?
They do. They look a bit brighter, and I think it's in particular the red food colouring.
Well, obviously, the idea is, why don't you just take the red ones out? Give the rest of them. If the others are legal,
so
take the red ones out.
You've got to literally kind of...
use British red ones, so then you like...
Pluck all the red ones out when you get the batch.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a ball ache.
Well, no, you get them when they're not coloured, and then you put them in a vat of the colour.
I've got an idea.
What?
Right? So what you do is you spend... I mean, it's a bit of investment in time. So what you do is you take out all the red ones, right?
Yeah.
So... you hire somebody to take out all the red ones.
Prisoners.
Right? Then you get a big pile of red ones and feed them to the next guy, right? Who's got to pluck out all the red ones. So you've got this infinite loop then. You've got someone who's high on E numbers
slowly.
to take out all the red ones. They're going to sit there high as anything, just whipping out them for days.
What they'll probably do is pick the red ones out and sell them as a separate one to Americans.
What's it that
or internationally?
I want a brandy glass filled with red M&Ms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't want
anyway, right. So moving on. Have you got any more news? I've got plenty of news.
Oh yeah. I've got news. How about a elk that was living with a tire around its neck for 2 years?
corporate little bastard.
Yeah.
So why was it wearing a tie? I mean, was it a bow tie? Bow ties are cool.
No, tyre.
A tyre?
A tyre as in on your car.
Oh,
round its neck for 2 years.
Seriously?
Yeah. Seriously. And it
Do you know
weighed
what?
35 pounds.
When you said this story earlier,
Yeah.
right, and you said he was walking around with a tie around his neck, around his neck. I
You-
honestly imagined an elk wearing a tie.
A bow tie, walking around going,
I was like,
hey, girls,
suave
what about
motherfucker.
this? Yeah.
It's like, who put that on him? And, where can I get one?
Yeah. No, this was a 35-pound weight across his neck for 2 years.
Oh, come on. That's awful.
Well, the wildlife people tried to 4 times. They tried to get it off, and they couldn't because of the metal content within
I
it.
reckon it's probably just matted around him as well. After
there's
a
loads
while
of pictures
wearing
of him just like hanging with his head, like there he is. He's the one with
you
the
can't
tire
help
on
but
him.
see him. It was just like he stands out of crowd.
Yeah, massively, man. But finally,
It's got this bumper.
They did get it off finally after the 4th attempt.
Did they have to cut it off him?
Yeah. There was metal
bless
pieces
him.
in it, so they
Well, yeah,
that's
because tyres
why.
do. They have that metal wiring,
Yeah.
don't they? So, I mean, I don't know.
And it was in Colorado Park, so I should imagine there'd be people around there who are like, "Yeah, I know that one. Now I'm not
seen
going to be
that.
able to see him again."
But at the end of the day,
Yeah.
how is it? This is the thing about kind of the
How's the tyre
environment
got
and
over?
how did the
Yeah.
tyre get around its neck in the first
Totally.
place?
'Cause
And
some
why
dick-
wasn't it caught earlier? And somebody first seen that goat with that elk with a tyre around its head?
Well,
To try and help it.
But the thing is, we're going to start having them problems again. I believe
Well, it's
actually.
like that thing with the 6-packs. Do you know, like when you've got the plastic ring pull thing? Do you know what attaches all your cans together?
Oh yeah.
So that was a problem with fish and turtles and
it was,
wildlife
still
and
is
ocean
today,
life,
but
and
not
it
as
still
much.
is. Well, there's a lot of kind of companies that have changed the way they do it and
Rightly so.
use different materials, cardboards, or even just like sort of glue the cans together in a way that you can pull them apart.
Yeah.
So they're doing the bit,
Yeah.
but is it too late to the amount of kind of, because I mean obviously
Well, time will
those
tell.
products were being used for decades.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Well, look at now straws
what's
and
in
stuff
the
like
sea
that.
still,
Yeah.
is still quite
Well, we've still-
alarming.
Well, we've still got that. We did have one of them, like what did they call it, like plastic islands. But we've got like 5 now.
Yeah, plastic islands
yeah.
aren't were a big problem. I mean,
Massive problem. But the question is, where do we shove it as well? What we're going to do? Shove it under the ground again?
no, blast it into space.
No, we see. This is another problem. We should be using materials that we can use again and again and again,
Yeah.
so we don't actually waste the material.
Blast it to the moon and Mars, right? Because
Well, so when we get there, we can do a bit of shopping.
No, when we get there, we can use it. We can recycle that, and
Well, I understand that one. Yeah, that is-
we can. We've got 3D printers now that can build houses out of recycled materials.
Yeah, but it costs a
breaks
lot
it
of
down.
money.
No, you just
£1
ship
billion to ship a load of shit into the moon,
No,
and then
you just basically build a big.
tube, right? We
Tube
shove
of
it
it,
down the tube
fire
and we
it off.
fire it. We put a Bunsen burner up its ass and it fucking fly up.
Exactly. Now you're getting it.
Yeah, well, we I'll tell you what we'll have to do. We'll have to see Elon Musk and
I'm
drop
sure
this to the idea,
We're just,
and then
we
make
literally
SpaceX
just
look like nothing.
we'll just weld a massive skip to the top of Jeff Bezos's already penis-like rocket, and we'll just blast off a couple of skip loads. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but by the time it burn through the atmosphere, it's
Exactly,
have to
there you
stay
go.
inside. No, but then
wait
that's
a
getting
minute.
rid of it. But we
Exactly.
need it
Well,
again.
We've not
Or
necessarily.
we've got to carry. Yeah,
You've just
because if we
answered the
don't, we've got to
question.
carry on digging
how
for
to get rid
plastic,
of it.
making plastics and making new materials.
No, because there's more sustainable materials that are being used now
There is,
other
but
than
we're still
plastic.
destroying.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know if you've noticed, but bamboo is a big one at the moment.
but then you've got
that you can make a plastic sort of resin, with bamboo fibre, and it's totally self-sustaining because bamboo grows so quick.
Yeah,
and they used to use it in torture because they could lie you down over a bamboo field, and the bamboo would literally grow through you in a really fast rate. So That's how quick it grows back. You can chop it down again 2 days later.
But then we're gonna create the same situation in Brazil, which is we need this kind of plant, so we're gonna knock all these trees down and grow this kind of plant. So then it's not helping the environment in that way. We need to use little bits from the environment, but materials that we've already used,
in the best place it grows,
use again and again and again, and making materials that don't break so fast.
No, I'm only messing when I'm being surreal with saying, blast it into space. But I mean, could be.
Yeah,
an
but
option.
it is. In terms of have got a good idea there.
The recyclability of stuff, and we're going to need. Because you get up there, and what have you got to work with in terms of recycling and working with what you've got?
Exactly.
Is
you ain't got
literally
engineers
fucking
who
rock,
digging holes and fucking making
rock and the stuff you brought with you.
Yeah.
So if you can blast off a load of essentially matter.
Yeah.
Then
it's
actually, a start, isn't it?
Here's an idea. Actually, the stuff that we are going to be living in, make the materials out of the shit that we're throwing away now.
Wow, there you go.
We go.
Can we get jobs at
Elon Musk,
SpaceX?
if you heard this, ring me.
Give us a shout, Elon. We're forward thinkers who think in and out of the box.
We do, and our minds are constant.
Here's one for you.
Go for it.
This woman, she allegedly pretended to be a doctor. Right. Not only that, she issued fake COVID exemptions. Now she doesn't believe she's done anything wrong.
Well. Hold on. Well, she's claiming something that she's not.
Oh, yeah, she definitely was claiming. It's like me saying, man arrested for claiming to be a police officer and abducting people.
Yeah.
Woman charged with pretending to be a doctor and issuing 600 fake medical exemption certificates for COVID-19. Doesn't believe she's done anything wrong. And she's basically entitled to issue the certificates.
Why? She's not.
Don't know.
So she's stupid.
So how is it? Why is she saying she's? Don't know.
Because if a doctor did ask you to give you a prescription, he's not telling you. He's asking you if you want it. Here we are.
Police said that she doesn't hold a medical doctorate in any way, so she's not registered as a health professional. And this happened in Australia,
right?
By the way.
Okay.
So she's been charged with up to $150. For fake medical exemption certificates.
Okay.
No, that's what she was charging.
Oh, right.
So she was actually making
she was getting
a lot
money
of money
for it.
She faces fines of up to 10,000.
Yeah, damn right.
But she issued 600 of these at 150 per one. So, she's
earned a nice bit of wedge there.
So, wait, hang on. I'm going to
he's getting a calculator out. It must be serious.
150 per thing, times, there's going to be people shouting the answer because I'm just being lazy.
Go on,
just being lazy.
He's lazy, and I don't want to give him the answer. Because I'm funny like that.
Well, so she still weren't for 80 grand. Do you know what I mean?
90 grand she would have made.
Yeah, but she's only got to pay 10 grand back.
Yeah, but then court costs where that's another couple of grand, so she'd be walking away with like 50 grand. Easy.
After time served.
Hey.
Yeah, because she's got potential jail time, but that's only potential.
Potential. Yeah, but when she's in jail, she's earning money and she doesn't have to spend out.
Fucking hell, so she's landed
So
down.
she's planned it down to nearly a T. She might have a dickhead cellmate, we don't know.
Do you think that fine's a bit low?
Yes, I find.
Or do you think she deserves the 50 grand for her initiative?
No, I don't. No, I think she should pay. I think they should have calculated it out, and she should have paid the lot.
Yeah,
and then everything afterwards, out of her own money. At the end of the day, because she broke the law, she did it wrong. She got caught, basically.
There you go.
If she didn't get caught, then she would have been sweet Daisy. But
well, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Let us know tell us. In the comments.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it?
Come on, Taylor, enlighten us.
Not as interesting as if you woke up, looked
with a
over
boner.
to. Oh well, yeah. Generally,
There's nothing more life that's less interesting. Go on.
Well, if you were a female then, and you woke up and you looked up and you seen a hole in your ceiling, and then looked at the pillow at the side of you, and no, it's not a man, it's not a dog, it is a meteorite that literally just missed her.
I thought you were going to say there was like a peeping Tom. or something. You
There might have been
look
a
up
peeping
and there
Tom.
was a hole in your ceiling, and you'd be like,
Well,
I'd be looking for peeping.
If there was an eye in that hole,
through
then
the eye, an eye through the hole.
Yeah, if there was an eye, then I'd be a bit
or something
freaky.
else, anything else sticking through it.
But, yeah,
You know
well,
what I mean?
yeah.
I'd be like,
Glory
whoa.
hole, are we talking?
Don't know.
Well, you know them. But yeah, October the 4th, this woman in
I did hear
British
this
Columbia
story actually. Yeah. She was she
woke up with a big shock, which you would though. But
she got a
literally,
meteorite through the ceiling.
Yeah, couple of more, about a foot the other way, she would have been dead dodo, and she wouldn't have known anything.
Well, if it
about
had the power to go through a roof.
Yeah.
And penetrate the proper air, and then still kind of like smolder on the bed. I think
it could have set fire, and
she could have, set fire.
Could have been a lot of damage.
But also, like you say, she was very lucky that she didn't get a bonk on the noggin.
Yeah, but then again, it's like the lottery, innit? You got more chance of meteorite hitting you on the head than lottery tickets.
Well,
so she was
you
nearly
can say
there.
that, but we watched that video recently, didn't we, of lightning strikes?
Yes, we did.
If you go on YouTube. Because I'd never thought to search it before, and I thought, do you know what, lightning strikes, right? And some of them, but I think it was like the top 5 lightning strikes caught on camera or something. Yeah, and it was one of the most impressive YouTube videos I've seen in terms of shock, because you're watching these videos and you don't know when it's going to happen, but you can kind of get a vague idea who's getting struck. To see somebody get struck by lightning, it's quite fucking hell. It's quite horrific, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
There was a couple of instances there where there was like, Jesus,
how the hell did you
and
survive?
the crack of the sound,
and the smell of crackling, I bet as well,
and the light. That flashes off. It's
don't
so
forget,
amazing.
The lightning is hotter than the surface of the sun, and that is like 500
hotter than
1,000 degrees or something.
Than the hottest thing.
Well, yeah, the sun. I'd say,
that. Yeah, right.
And
well,
but there is one place in the world.
That's
here's a fact from it.
Go on.
That's thunder and lightning happens all the time, and there's a good reason why. And we should have thunder because it helps our ozone. It's one of the best things for the ozone, and it gets rid of the carbon. It is mint for our planet. So
we could do with some
quite a bit of it in a minute. Yeah,
plasma lightning machines.
As long as you don't hurt no one, then you're all right. You know what I mean? But
fair enough.
We'll tell you to stay indoors. But that's no guarantee. Have you seen them ball lightnings?
Ball lightning?
Yeah,
I've seen that.
They're freakish things as well, man.
So,
it's like swamp gas.
Anything else you want to talk about? I've got this one story.
Go for it.
Basically, apparently there was there was a couple who tried to sell off military secrets using gum wrappers and a peanut butter sandwich.
What?
It's apparently the truth. Yeah.
Right.
Now I found it difficult to find this story actually because I found it and then it was being geo-blocked and I didn't have a VPN. So Yeah. The claim was basically saying that they was trying to. It's almost like a film, one of these sort of old spy movies.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Soldier
Spy.
Yeah.
So they were basically leading to take some encrypted data. To a pre-arranged location.
Okay.
They got to the site drop of a digital memory card containing concealed in a peanut butter sandwich.
Whoa, dangerous sandwich.
And some gum wrappers, probably obviously to shield it from any magnetism or I don't know.
Well,
the peanut butter sandwiches can be quite devastating to electronics.
Yeah, especially if it got no jelly and you're in America.
You know what I mean? I've known a peanut butter sandwich to wipe a whole computer.
Yeah, well, it only takes a certain thing, doesn't it?
Do you know what I mean? The dangerous things, peanut butter sandwiches.
Yeah, you don't want it thrown at you.
But yeah, the Maryland couple were charged with violating the Atomic Energy Act.
Secrets Acts. Ooh,
and they potentially face life in prison.
Yeah, serious, man.
I wonder what was on the data, really. Because, obviously, was it worth it?
If you found out what was in that data, I think you'd be probably joining them, mate.
I don't really care.
Secrets, and it's about UFOs.
It was, US intelligence stole from the Pentagon, most probably.
Well,
I don't know.
Yeah.
But,
Could have been.
I bet they thought they had the greatest plan going, though. Do you know what I mean? It was like, right, it's foolproof. We've got a peanut butter sandwich.
To be honest,
right.
it could
Chew
be.
some gum. We need the rappers.
For all we know, that secrets that they're trying to get out could have actually been helping us. For all we know.
Foiled.
Yeah. And we've been busted, man. Busted.
Well, they were amateurs, apparently.
Yeah, amateurs. You got to do it the proper way, man. Shove it in your bum.
No, that's not what you do.
No,
this is a brilliant, and I'm not sure if this is a legit. We want to return this back to the rightful owners or a sting operation.
Yeah.
So this is a story about a lost 770 pounds of marijuana in a Florida sheriff's department. And the sheriff,
that's where I left it.
The sheriff wants to reunite you with it. By all accounts.
Yeah, I would go, but
it's a sting.
I'm a bit busy at the minute.
You want to see it? There's loads.
Loads, so that's a good night.
Misplaced cannabis. We're not talking your run-of-the-mill keys or cell phone when you lose something. This is $2 million worth of pot.
Yeah, it was mine.
So according to Facebook post on Wednesday, the Brevard County Sheriff's Office said, has anyone misplaced? Hey guys,
do you reckon if I asked them to post it to me?
It's your crazy local sheriff's department here. Has anybody lost a bit of pot?
And we've got the heroin next door.
Yeah, I know. We're all getting funky here. We've had, it's quite a lot of weed.
Chief's got the coke, so
770 pounds worth of marijuana has been brought into the police station.
How the fuck do you lose it?
And apparently the sheriff is trying to seek its rightful owner.
He's a very nice man, isn't he?
Isn't he just?
He is a very nice man.
It's almost like one of those videos you used to see where it's like, we've enticed this criminal who we've had a warrant out for his arrest for 8 years and we've not been able to get him, but we posted him a letter telling him he's won a flat screen TV and he's got to come and collect it from this address.
Yeah,
let's see what happens.
Nice.
Next minute, it's like some fucking bunkin walks in going, I'm here to collect my TV.
Yeah, we're here to send you to jail.
We've been looking for you.
Yeah, nice.
Well,
nice. Well, some criminals aren't that bright.
If you did happen to lose your weed, I don't know if you want to take the risk and go and walk into the police department.
I want him to post it to me. Post it, man.
I can't tell, right? If it's obviously I'd assume
what's the legal law in there actually.
That's what I was thinking. Is it legal in Florida? If it is, I'm pretty sure that there'll be limits on how much he can possess. So if it was a business that can prove legitimately that they are the owners, and it was produced for company business reasons, then probably they would get it back. But if it was just some guy who was like
unlucky son,
I just happened to grow loads of weed, and it's all personal.
I want to know how they didn't find any more information. They've got to do this because they don't know. This is like the last resort.
What, like public, reaching out to the public?
Yeah, because on
Facebook.
Well, we had no cameras on him. We didn't know. Right. We had no fingerprints. We had no tracks.
Can I just make a suggestion? Brevard County Sheriff's Office. If you don't have anybody come forward, I think it's your ethical and moral responsibility to distribute that to the not to the kids, but to the local people of your county. Right. As a nice little token, knock on the door and go, do you know what? Police are getting a bad rep here for recently.
Hey, I'll tell you what,
have a blaze on us.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That'll bump up police, like people relations.
Yeah, that would help so
even if
much.
they knocked on and went, I'm here
Here's
for
an ounce, mate.
Here's an ounce.
Yeah.
I'm coming. Can I come in for a blaze?
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Get to know your local copper.
And that's good for the community,
exactly,
and for the police. So forget all these booking things.
Because I was saying, actually, there's
up.
loads of stories that are cropping up at the moment because it's like trying to paint the police in a better light.
Yeah,
And,
hey, I'll tell you what, if the police knocks on my door and give me an ounce of weed, I'll let him come in and
I'd be like, do you want a brew?
Yeah, come in, man.
Do you want?
Yeah.
Do you want a brew?
I'll shake your fucking hand.
Here's the remote. Watch what you want.
Yeah, go for it, yeah.
Subscribe.
Here's me
I
wife.
don't care, yeah.
Yeah. But that's
Officer
not going to
friendly.
happen. Yeah. But the cops have bad time. And we are jesting about it, and it's.
But if you did want to, raid your evidence locker and bring us an ounce of weed, we would not. We
would not complain. We are looking for donations, so if you'd like to give us at least a quarter of it,
no, we do take police bribes.
We do. We're up for bribes.
They're not bribes. They're donations.
Yes, well, that's why I was trying to say donations and not bribes. So yes, forget that bribe part. We are up for donations. You know where to send it.
Do you know what? It's just the amount of great ideas I've given away tonight is just unbelievable.
We should be in Mensa at the minute.
For one episode.
Yeah, we should be at the government in a minute telling them what to fucking do.
Do you know what, though? Do you know when you get, like, governments don't always know what they're doing? And, especially, for... You're trying to, impress people to come to your country.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want some really cool tourism.
Yeah,
you want some really good sort of spokesman.
You do, indeed,
right?
Yeah.
So who would you say was a good spokesman for a country? I mean,
Queen.
The Queen. Good shout, actually. Yeah, the Queen's quite, even though she's a figurehead, isn't she? She's regal in that respect.
She's a rich woman.
She's known for being British.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
right.
she can cut your head off.
So, New Zealand, apparently, they've got one, which is, no, they haven't got a queen, but they've got like a tourism figurehead or symbol.
Oh, right.
Yeah, right. And he's like a wizard.
Oh, well, we have a wizard.
They've got a wizard, yeah,
Not
seriously,
Merlin,
So he gets hired to do wizardy stuff.
Yeah.
And he must have appeared in all of the sort of tourism and trade stuff that they published.
Yeah,
bring
people in.
Because he worked with them for like 28 years or something
dedicated,
like that. Yeah, so he's dedicated. Well, they've sacked him.
Dedicated, and he's
23 years. I don't know if they've sacked him, but they've just basically cancelled his contract.
Oh.
So you could say he's been sacked. But
what are the reasons though?
I think they just want to go with a different, a different change in the tourism board. Do you know what I mean? They paid him like 16 grand a year.
Oh, well, so he was on media.
For 16 grand a year for just dressing up like a wizard's pretty good crack, to be honest.
Well, yeah, but
I mean, he only has to do that every now and again. It's not like it's Dumbledore and he has to, teach kids magic or anything.
Yeah, well, that's what I expect from a magician. I want him to teach me how to deal.
Well, he's been doing it for a while anyway, but I mean, they've just let him go. And obviously...
It's going to be funny what they're going to bring out next.
He says he's basically become a living work of art.
Well,
that's it, isn't it? I mean, if you can't... There's worse jobs to have in your life. And if that's what you've done and you've enjoyed it, then... Do you know what he should do?
What?
Try and get into like advertising, not advertising, but like adverts, because you could carry on the wizard thing.
Yes.
Yeah. But like for a brand or something. There's another one.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Have another idea on me.
See, full of them. Full of them.
Full of summit. Anyway, I've got some NASA news.
Yeah.
Have you got some?
I've got NASA news too.
Well, I want to kick off NASA news with NASA news. I mean, anything to do with space, really.
Well,
it's not just generally NASA news anymore, is it? It's NASA, SpaceX, Bezos news.
Oh, yes.
Well, this one goes into Pentagon secrets and cover-ups.
Oh, again.
Captain Robert Salas. Who is a kind of an Air Force captain?
Yeah.
Yeah. He claims he saw a giant UFO disable 10 live nukes.
Oh.
Right? This is at a top secret base, and the Pentagon is covering it up. So he also says that he sees this as a sign that the extraterrestrials are delivering us a message to humanity.
Yeah.
Basically saying, stop fucking about with nukes.
Yeah.
So how long ago was this when he said this happened? Because I mean, it's like this. Okay, so yeah, March
80s?
of 1967.
Oh right, 67. Yeah.
So he was on duty on a military base. He was the commander of a secret underground launch.
Right, yeah.
Then he says he fired, and a UFO came overhead, hovered over the facility. Whilst hovering, there was basically interference with the nukes, and they disarmed them all. The missiles.
Well, it would have been around the times as well when they've been testing nukes in like the Pacific and stuff like that. So they were, if they were aliens,
they're not listening.
Well, they
didn't listen.
Well, that's true, but there's been what was the list? I can't remember how many nukes actually have been. But all over the world, you'd be surprised at some of the places.
Now, there's so many nukes littered around the earth.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's unnecessary, really, because if you were to ask any country and say, are you planning on setting one of those nuclear devices off?
No,
they'd say, no.
No.
But, I've got it in defence because somebody else might.
Yeah.
Well, how about just get rid of them all and then no one's got the temptation and then nobody can retaliate?
Well, not only that, it's funny over the years that more and more countries have developed them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and they continue to develop them.
Yeah,
I mean, I know
totally.
that, we went into Iraq because we were told that they was developing nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
But we don't go into other countries that are actively developing nuclar weapons.
Yeah.
And have been told to stop.
I believe we give it to India.
These countries at the moment that are sending up ballistics
Yeah.
or hypersonics. Right. And some of those are illegal to operate or even develop.
Oh yeah, and they're brand new.
It's like how it gets to a point where the stuff that is legal overtakes the stuff that was illegal in lethality. Yeah, right. And you have to reclassify everything. And I think we're at that point where stuff that once was illegal isn't the worst thing there now. We need to look at what's being developed now, reclassify, and then stop them developing them, stop them making them, and even try and just put a halt to the research in general.
I can see it being like there's going to be a space war. I've got because
that's the only place you can really get the adequacy of using your nukes and get away with it. You don't want putting everyone in danger because you're just firing off nukes in space.
And there's actually been meetings and groups together that state that laws state that there will not be a war in space because that is what everyone expects.
What I think they should do is just literally slim everything down to gladiator style. So rather than war, you get a fucking Street Fighter competition with the two world leaders.
Oh yeah, world leaders should batter the fuck out of each other and see who wins, and then go
have
that's
strong leaders, as well.
Well, yeah.
But then again, you want a clever, strong
America
leader.
Be fucked with Biden.
You know what I mean? Well, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Fucking well, I don't think
Boris Johnson v Biden.
Who's the youngest world leader? Is it still what's his Canadian
geezer?
So is he the front runner at this point?
Yeah, but what are you going to do with the women? What if it's got to be man versus woman?
It's like war games. It's like there's the what's it? Isn't it Squid Games?
Yeah, but they all will.
They all
watch show the cocks.
Hunger Games. It's like get them all in a battle royale situation. For
should put them all in a row and give them all
supreme overlord status.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's Europe. Well, not Europe. That's going to be the UN.
It's the new world order.
Well.
Have you heard about the Starlink system Elon Musk's put up about internet internet in space internet
free internet.
Well, there was a lot of customers who pre-ordered. They paid about $100 or about the equivalent
$600 in it for a unit.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well,
payment.
But the that was $100 deposit. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
They paid it 9 months ago.
Yeah.
And they've not received anything.
Whoa! What's going on, Elon? What's going on, son?
No contact.
No contact?
I think Elon's trying to make first contact elsewhere.
I think he's trying to nick your money, son.
So, some Starlink customers have cancelled their £100 deposits after waiting months and months and months for the service. They said they just weren't wanted to connect to the internet.
They
just wanted to go on YouTube and Facebook and stuff, Elon.
Well, 57 of their satellites have fell out of the sky already.
Serious?
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, there's probably more actually now. That's what I looked at a month ago. 57 of the fuckers.
Well, they said that. Well, they're obviously having issues, and I don't know if this is down to the pandemic or what. But SpaceX said that kits for Starlink would have arrived mid to late 2021. But some customers have become fed up of waiting and cancelled.
Don't blame him.
Forfeiting £100. So John Durran paid £100 deposit in February for Starlink and to replace his old service.
Yeah.
And he's basically had enough now. He's forfeited it now. So I don't know if you've got it. I mean, there's a lot of people who are getting it just because it's like, you know, good for rural areas where you can't necessarily get high speed internet.
Sounds like a great
people who travel around as well. Do you know, like, you know, caravanners or vanners, or whatever.
Yeah,
you know, they're all using them.
But the system
similar
has
kits
to work. This is the thing. I hate it when, like, especially tech brings stuff out and then you have errors. You have.
Well, it's just like
but you need to secure all that shit before you bring that stuff out.
Came out. I mean, it's like where we're looking. It's a development thing, isn't it? I
think,
You know, I actually was watching something about space rockets the other day. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And it was all about the development of. It was about the initial space race and, like, you know, the space race with Russia and all the attempts and the reasoning behind the attempts of the different rockets and the, you know, Project Mercury.
Yeah, I understand that.
And, you know, sending a chimp up.
Yeah.
The selection behind the astronauts and all the rest of it, and how they were going to automate it, and they kicked off because they were like, well, why hire us, you know, test pilots to, you know, fly it when you're going to just automate it.
You just need to.
But the mistakes that were made,
don't get me wrong,
necessary. Yeah. You know, and it's luck here that there was no mistakes made as much, you know, with people on board, and those mistakes are made in a time when they're just in a development stage. But they need that. It's just shocking how much money they spend.
Yeah, and we're more advanced than what we were back then.
Yeah,
we are more technically minded. We are more. Computer will say yes, we can do this. And then if it works out, and this is where we find bits in science where we go, well, actually, this is supposed to mean this, and so we could do this, but actually nothing happens there, so we need to find out what's going on there. So it gives an extra
I'll move on.
Science. But you will move on, but you're still, some scientists will have a look at, well, why did it go wrong when it should have been calculated right, and it was calculated out right, but something that we don't know or understand about has actually changed that situation. You know what I mean? So then they can look into that. So that can give us more advance as well. But like I stand by it. If you're going to bring something out,
isn't it?
Yeah. But still, we're more advanced than we was, and we seem
I mean, it's like this new project that they've just blasted off today, actually, Lucy.
Yeah, Lucy.
Which is a new NASA,
NASA,
Dennis and NASA. It's a new NASA mission that is basically to bump an asteroid or swarm with an aim of exploring the origins of the solar system.
Yeah.
What they're doing is apparently it's going to be flying past a lot of like asteroids. And it's going to be able to fire a projectile, sort of satellite-looking thing. At a high speed, which is going to just nudge this asteroid in aim of kind of shifting its orbit.
See if it's basically the plan for if we have enough notice.
It's the plot from Armageddon.
It is. We need to work out if we push it in this direction or this amount of force or what would actually happen. It's all good talking about it, but
that's what I like about this,
it.
because it's like it's not a case of that. It's like, well, we've got this theory and we think that it might work if the opportunity ever, or you know, if we were ever in a situation where there was a massive asteroid.
Yeah.
Could we use a nuke to kind of bump it off course.
We've got one coming in, massive, the biggest one ever coming into our
this.
solar system that's going to be right near Saturn, which is like something like 165 miles long.
This is the thing, you see, because I think, when, we've had Prince William this week.
Oh, yes, we have.
He was basically saying, because we've talked about it, what was his name?
William
Shatner going up into space with Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin.
Brilliant. It was good to see,
and how Luke Skywalker should be going up on the next SpaceX one.
He should.
Buck Rogers with Richard Branson.
Yeah. They're having
Branson
problems
with Flash Gordon.
Flash Gordon. Oh, yeah, that'd be a good one.
That'd be a good one. Good team up, that.
Yeah.
Branson and Flash.
Flash and Branston.
The Branson and Flash sounds like a great show. I'd watch Branson and Flash. What are you talking about? That sounds awesome. Anyway,
well, I think it'd be more boring, to be honest.
Branson and Flash.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be entertainment at all. Unless it were crashy smashes and, booms.
Listen,
and
don't
bangs.
overthink it, right? So, wow, a lot of blue lights tonight.
Blue lights.
So,
I done nothing.
where were we going with this, right? So, Prince William came out after William Shatner landed, and he was basically saying he finds this whole space race a bit kind of frustrating, how he thinks that the greatest minds of Earth should be focusing on saving this planet rather than looking for the next place to live.
Well, we ain't going to live a lot longer on this planet if we carry on.
We've talked about there was a big rush all of a sudden. There was a genuine new space race
amounts of money
to get off the planet, to move on to Mars, to move to the moon. Yeah,
2023,
and it was almost
24,
like all this money was just being thrown at it.
Yeah,
and we were like, why is this all of a sudden? When it's like, well, is there a reason why they want to get white people off the planet? Yeah, right. So could it be that an extinction level event
that they know about?
Maybe, and Prince William just doesn't know. Do you know what I mean? I don't know.
Well, he doesn't seem to know a lot of things, because we do need the technology.
According to
space.
there's been a lot of controversy surrounding this, because William Shatner himself said Prince William is a lovely, educated man.
Yeah.
But he doesn't think it's about just sending rich people to space for the fun of it. He had a very profound experience, and I think William Shatner being an actor and an artist.
A well-known actor,
and not just an actor. I'd say William Shatner's an artist in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of acting, vocalist. I'm the real Slim Shady. All you other spoken word albums, you could say he argue he's an artist, right? So when he looked out of the window, he had a profound, everything that ever was and ever will be in humanity that has happened here, experience.
Totally.
I don't know if Jeff Bezos had that. I think he probably more had he was kind of looking at his stock prices going up, and that was his kick. In that situation, I don't think he looked out the window. No. Maybe I was wrong. Where he looked out the window and went, "Do you know what? I've got all this money. I'm going to save that planet."
From what I've seen, I think he was laid right across from one end to the other, looking out the window. Yeah, and he was like, "What are you doing?" And then Shatner's there trying to, get up.
Did Jeff actually go up with him?
I think so. Well,
because apparently he was. Oh, there was people up there with William Shatner, but Jeff Bezos actually wore his flight suit all the way up to the capsule, and I think it was like, if the opportunity came, if somebody bailed and there was a spare seat, he would have gone in. But I wasn't sure, because he was one of those where I was watching it and I was following it live, but then
didn't he ring
I think
the bell?
We had about 40 minutes before the blast off and I had to go out, so I was kind of just following it on my phone.
I'm sure he rang the bell, because when you
who Bezos did?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, because after Shatner. The Shatner
well, he might have rang the bell, but does that mean? But
that means
up?
That's the bell. You're leaving Earth, and you're gonna then come back.
Ring.
Yeah.
Is that you didn't ring the bell? You're not allowed to come. Or what if you get on the ship and you hadn't rang the bell? Is that bad luck?
Well, I'm presuming so. I haven't really looked into the bell of the thingy, because I hadn't seen it that much, but I had heard that they do ring the bell before.
Another person who did have a bit of something to say about it was Jeremy Clarkson.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, he said Jeremy Clarkson slammed the Prince, apparently saying that it's nonsense about the space race. He says that the people who tell Prince William topics to discuss had really dropped the ball.
Yeah, totally.
So,
because look, he's got more power and influence than any other around where I am anyway.
Who?
The Prince.
Oh, right, where you are, around your
England.
way. Oh right, I was going to say, always hanging around my way.
Yeah, well,
Prince.
You know, he likes to knock on every
They
now
call
and
him
again.
the Fresh Prince.
Nice little cup of tea. He likes a brandy.
He brings me an ounce.
Yeah, good answer.
Him and the chief of police.
Well, I'll bring that news next week.
Right, okay. What? I'm interested.
You're interested now, right? Houses of Parliament. Someone asked for Freedom of Information Act on how many people have been arrested over the last year in Parliament. Now, 2 of them were drug dealers.
Who?
Inside the Parliament.
Ah, right,
yeah.
Okay.
And then there was like a few harassments and then like a few issues at the gate and that. But yeah, it was surprising on 2 drug dealers who were caught red-handed.
Do you know what? You know, when you said that then, it was, have you ever seen Trading Places with Dan Aykroyd?
Yeah, brilliant
right?
film, man.
That was the image I got, do you know, when they're all in the swanky old men club, and it was like, we've got a thief amongst us.
Yes.
And they make him empty the pockets.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? And they find, he's a
cocaine
or whatever.
Pocket, yeah.
That's well, it was dollar bills, weren't he? I mean, he gets labelled a drug dealer later, but it's almost like that sort of pompous, fucking snooty bastards. Do you know, like who's but like they're the ones buying it off him.
Yeah, well, yeah, this is it. Yeah, like half of them been snorting and stuff like that, but like well, it was a surprise to me.
Well, any more NASA news before we move on? Because I think that's coming up to the end of the show, to be honest.
Go for it quick. ISS, which is the International Space Station, had a massive alert the other day when they were trying to... They changed orbit when they were trying to fix something on the station, which has made it worse, which means it's probably going to come down.
It's always one of them, isn't it? When you try and fix something and you break something else.
Well, there was a space capsule there, and they were doing something to it.
And he blasted it off. They were like, that was the last escape capsule.
Well, yeah, I would have thought nearly. There's been a strange radio wave signals from the centre of our galaxy, which they thought it was a supernova or something like that, but the signals weren't the right signals, and they don't know these signals. They were tracing it for, I think...
so is this like another WOW signal, if you like? Is this going to be...
Yeah, but this one's constant. They were tracking it 15 minutes. It was going on and off for, I think, 6 weeks. But
so how is it that, if they can pick up these signals, how is it they can't decode it into what
Because they've never had it before. These other waves of signals, you could work out what they are, like, the moon turning or, a star exploding or something like that. Yeah.
It gives off energy signatures, don't they? Yeah.
But this one is
in fact, we've played space sounds before, and when they digitized the signals to discover what that sounds like, and it's quite beautiful in a lot of ways, isn't it?
Spooky sometimes.
Quite eerie stuff.
It is.
And
another place where we've just found signals, which won't be surprised that we found signals coming from a sun, but it's the first time that we've found that there's planets around that sun, so it looks like, or possibly, that it's actually coming from a planet and not the sun.
Right,
so this could be the first planet we've ever found that's actually sending a signal. Which
aliens,
yeah,
it's got to be aliens, hasn't it?
No doubt about it. And that is my news for tonight.
Thank you very much. Well, I think that's the end of the show.
Yes.
Well, we're getting there anyway. I think what's it next week? It's coming up to Halloween.
It is.
And we're going to carry on with the spooky topics. We've got a good one next week. And then obviously it's Halloween.
Yeah.
Week after.
What we're going to do? We're going to dress up like pumpkins.
I don't know. We'll do something.
Yeah.
We'll find something. We'll get into the festive spirit.
Yeah, why not?
If you want to get in touch, if you got any questions, queries, comments, or suggestions, any ways we can improve the show, or whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah.
You want to just mention, come for a chat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You could turn up with an ounce.
Yeah. Mr. Officer.
I'll make you a brew. You can get in touch at neverstraightanswer@gmail.com. You can hit us up on Twitter at NASA_never. And we're on Instagram at neverstraightanswer. We're available on all podcast platforms, wherever you get your podcasts, from iHeartRadio, iTunes, Spotify, wherever.
Anchor.
Castbox, Anchor.
Yeah. We're
and
everywhere,
even
baby.
YouTube.
Everywhere.
We're over there. BoobTube.
BoobTube.
We're on the BoobTube.
We are.
Also on Red Wall Radio.
Yes.
Every Thursday night at 9
don't
p.m.
forget to listen in.
We'll be back next week for another episode.
We will, indeed, as
Packed
always.
Full of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Crazy news.
Yeah.
Science.
And there is a lot out there.
Even more.
And a lot more to come.
Well.
It's a crazy world.
It's a crazy world.
It is.
I'm losing my voice.
Yeah,
do you know, I've had a bit of a kind of a sore throat all week.
See, everyone around me has.
But
I haven't.
I start speaking like Barry White to get the bass.
Oh, you'll get knickers thrown at you doing that.
No, and that's Tom Jones, isn't it? Does
Barry White as well, too? Yeah, man, yeah.
Hey,
Barry White loved the old knickers throwing.
Thongs. Flying through the air.
You don't want one of them in your eye, do you?
Just getting that pink eye.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, I heard a story of a woman who got a thong flicked at her, and you know that
took
eating
her
disease.
eye out.
No, that eating
years
of the 90s.
I'm pretty sure people get the gist.
Yeah.
I think you're on. Well, if you've managed to get this far into the show, we'll fucking salute you. You're an absolute legend. Especially if you just listen to that.
Yeah.
Then you're a double legend.
I didn't mean to bring it up. Just ask me.
I know, but it
just come to me.
We're out of here. Right, we'll catch you next week. Peace.
Out.